Chapter 846. The smile on Li Shimon's face disappeared. It was just as little Gizi had said. The Tang dynasty was not peaceful now. Although everything seemed fine on the inside, only a few people knew that the three great powers were still three mountains weighing down on the Great Tang. Although one of them was in imminent danger, it had yet to topple. As for the Shandong aristocrats, they would have to wait for the imperial examination held in Zhongfeng's academy 3 years later to decide. Originally, the imperial examination system was held once every 3 years. According to the plan, there would be an imperial examination this year. However, too many things had happened in the past few years. Later, Zhang Feng suddenly appeared. Li Shimon had to grit his teeth and cancel this year's imperial examination on the grounds of the disaster this year. Wasn't this why Li Shimon was confused? The more he read the poem, the more shocked Li Shimon became. Little Gizi, come and look. This poem? Li Shimon called him and then shook his head. Forget it. You can leave now. I need to be alone. On the other side. In a tea house in Chang'an City. At this moment, Blind Sun appeared in front of everyone's expectant eyes again. Pah! He slammed the gavel. All the people in the tea house instantly focused their eyes on him. Even the people on the second floor, because of the paper-by incident, did not dare to treat Blind Sun as an ordinary person anymore. After Blind Sun heard the silence in the hall, he slowly took a sip of tea and slowly said, "Today, we will still talk about the matter of Mount E." Hearing Mount Shao, everyone was instantly interested. Blind Sun, isn't Mount Shao the White Deer College? Did the college produce something good again? A young man in a green robe on the second floor cupped his hands and asked. Hearing this, Blind Sun cupped his hands and said to the second floor, "Child Zhou, you must have heard of the name Zhang Feng, right?" The young man in the green robe nodded. "Yes, I have heard of him." This person. Good. Blind Sun interrupted him, but young Master Zhou didn't even dare to fart. That Zhang Feng is the disciple of an extraordinary person. But today, let's not talk about his legend, and how he managed to turn those stubborn disciples into obedient grandsons. Let's talk about his talent. Talent. Although this person heard that the 4 great Confucians jointly recommended him to be the great Confucian, it has never been confirmed. Now, the 4 great Confucians have all run to the mountain and don't show their faces. Even the medicine god Sun Simiao has stayed on the mountain and doesn't come down. Everyone was still curious. This Blind Sun actually wanted to talk about it. Everyone couldn't help but become even more curious. This Prince Zhang Feng. Let's not talk about anything else. Just based on his talent, I'm sure everyone can recognize a few of his poems. For example, I'm sure everyone has heard of that poem, right? Hearing this, everyone could not help but nod. That's right, this poem is indeed shocking. However, this has nothing to do with talent, right? Ha ha ha. Blind Sun stroked his beard and laughed loudly. Then he suddenly shouted, "Who said that?" In an instant, the entire tea house suddenly became quiet. Whether a person is talented or not, let's not talk about other aspects first. A poem is enough to represent everything about this person. As he spoke, Blind Sun picked up the wine pot on the table and poured a cup of wine. He raised the cup and stood up. Then he shouted loudly, "Don't you see, the water of the Yellow River comes from the sky and flows to the sea, never to return? Don't you see, the bright mirror grieves white hair? Like black silk in the morning, like snow in the evening." After this poem, the entire tea house became silent. Even the scholars, and dignitaries on the second floor instantly became quiet. Everyone was trying to figure out the artistic conception of this poem. After Blind Sun's shout, everyone's hearts instantly surged. After a long while, Blind Sun still minded his own business and continued to drink his wine. On the third floor, a faint female voice sounded again. "Well said. Men, reward Prince Zhang's white wine." Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up. White wine. What kind of wine is this? Under everyone's expectant gazes, a maidservant carried a white porcelain wine pot to a platform between the first and second floor. This was also the place where Blind Sun always told stories. Blind Sun cupped his fists towards the third floor. "Thank you, shopkeeper." Then, under everyone's gaze, he slowly poured a cup of wine. In an instant, the fragrance of the white wine filled everyone's hearts. Blind Sun sniffed and then praised, "Good wine." After drinking it in one gulp, Blind Sun's face instantly turned as red as blood. This scene shocked everyone. However, under everyone's gazes, Blind Sun placed his hand on his chest for a moment before taking a deep breath. Good wine. Good wine. No wonder young Master Zhang was able to compose such a beautiful poem. I'm afraid that the wine is the most important thing. As expected of Prince Zhang, who was given the title of Wine Immortal by the 4 great scholars. Wine Immortal? Zhang Feng's title was Wine Immortal? This, everyone couldn't help but be stunned. Smelling the wine in the air and recalling the poem that Blind Sun had just recited, everyone's mind couldn't help but spin. Those who could become saints and immortals, which one of them didn't have the ability to transcend the heavens and the earth? This Zhang Feng was only in his early 20s. How could he be called Wine Immortal? However, Blind Sun didn't say too much. Instead, he talked about Zhang Feng again. Just last night, Wine Immortal Prince Zhang created a masterpiece in Shao Mountain. At this moment, the emperor, the retired emperor, and even a few dukes in the imperial palace were alarmed. Chapter 847. On the Mountain. When the gong sounded, it was time to open the gates. Zhang Feng slowly got out of bed. As soon as he went out and was about to call Shiva, Zhang Yuyao and Xiao Cui had already placed the copper basin on the table and were taking a nap. Seeing Zhang Feng come out, Xiao Cui quickly picked up the copper basin. Young master. Zhang Feng was stunned. How long have you been waiting here? Zhang Yuyao's cheeks were red. Not long. Not long, just 3 envoys. Before Zhang Yuyao could finish, Jingshu's faint voice sounded from another room. Zhang Feng took a look. He didn't know when, but Jingshu was actually sitting in his confidential information room, flipping through an ancient book. Hearing this, Zhang Feng's head almost exploded. However, Zhang Feng thought about it again. I didn't ask you to wait. Forget it. I'll take it one step at a time. Thinking of this, Zhang Feng shamelessly pointed at the sink at the side and said, Don't worry. As expected. Xiao Cui obediently brought the copper basin to the basin, and even handed Zhang Feng's towel to Zhang Yuyao. Zhang Feng didn't say anything. He calmly sat in front of the basin. Xiao Cui washed Zhang Feng's face, while Zhang Yuyao combed Zhang Feng's hair with a red face and a racing heart. After a while, Zhang Feng was like a puppet. Under Zhang Yuyao's torment, he looked brand new. However, when Zhang Feng saw what he was wearing in the copper mirror, he didn't feel good. There was nothing wrong with the crown. Pure gold embedded with gems. But what was the meaning of this green robe? Yuyao, this? Zhang Feng pointed to the green robe on his body and asked. That was knitted by Sister Yuyao in the past month. The thread is also from the mulberry silkworms that Sister Yuyao raised personally. Sister Jingshu, that's enough. Zhang Yuyao hurriedly interrupted Jingshu. But Zhang Feng understood everything. He wanted to take it off, but how could he do it now? How would he dare to take it off? Rubbing his nose, Zhang Feng calmly patted Zhang Yuyao's shoulder. Revealing a smile that he thought was charming, he said, Thank you for your hard work. I like this robe very much. When Zhang Yuyao heard this, she lowered her head and blushed like an egg. Zhang Feng couldn't help but crack. He hurriedly found an excuse and said, All right, it's time to eat. Clean up and let's eat. Miss Jingshu, it's time to eat. Shiva, where's my food? Where the hell did you go? He's here. In an instant, Shiva, who had been standing outside the door for a long time, walked into the room awkwardly. He didn't even dare to raise his head as he hurriedly placed the food box on the table and slipped away. Seeing this, Zhang Feng was stunned. Jingshu placed the ancient book in her hand on the bookshelf and looked at Zhang Feng with a smile. Prince Zhang doesn't have to be like this. Why? But you're really frank. Frank my ass. Zhang Feng was embarrassed. He was angry and embarrassed. He didn't explain and sat down. He stared at Cui as she placed the exquisite dishes on the table. He waved his hand and said, Let's eat. After hurriedly eating a few mouthfuls of food, Zhang Feng finally found an excuse and said, I still have something to do at the foot of the mountain. I'll go first. You guys eat slowly. After saying this, he ran away as if he was fleeing from a disaster. When Zhang Feng left the room, he sighed in relief. However, when he looked at his toad-like green robe, Zhang Feng had the urge to beat someone up. Before this, he was still laughing at Cui Er's green robe. Now, in the blink of an eye, Could it be that Zhang Yuyao likes green that much? No, I have to educate her. While thinking, Zhang Feng wandered around the mountain gate. At this moment, Uncle He came to Zhang Feng with a strange expression and said, "Fengzi, come here." What's wrong? However, Uncle He didn't say anything. He pointed to the back of the kitchen. Zhang Feng saw Li Chengqian and the others waving at him. Since he wasn't full just now, Zhang Feng didn't care about it. However, when Zhang Feng entered the kitchen, Uncle He immediately drove everyone out. However, Zhang Feng didn't notice. He picked up the bowl of porridge that was prepared for him and gulped it down in one gulp. "Fengzi, you're really famous now. Do you know?" Zhang Feng was a little confused. However, when he thought of he seemed to understand something. He lazily agreed and then asked while eating, "Oh, and then you ask?" Li Chengqian smiled and said, "What did you do last night?" "Last night? Wasn't it yesterday afternoon?" "Nothing. What else can I do except sleep?" "I mean except sleep." Hearing that, Zhang Feng put down his bowl and chopsticks. He looked at Cheng Chumo and the others with a strange expression and asked, "Tell me clearly. Did I really go back to sleep last night after I finished talking with you? What else can I do except sleep?" Zhang Feng was a little impatient. Seeing that Zhang Feng didn't seem to know, Li Chengqian got close to Zhang Feng and asked, "Did you compose a poem last night?" Zhang Feng thought for a while. He did compose a poem. He nodded and asked, "You did? What's wrong? Where's the original work? Show it to us." Zhang Feng was even more confused. "Yesterday, I just casually told Jingshu a poem and then went to sleep. I don't have any original work. If you want an original work, write it yourself and stamp it with my seal. It's an original work." Hearing Zhang Feng's words, Li Chengqian and the others couldn't help but look serious. They said, "Feng, are you sure you didn't write it last night?" "I wrote your grandma's leg. If you have something to say, just say it. Don't hold it in. It's uncomfortable." Seeing that Zhang Feng was angry, Li Chengqian lit a cigarette and blew out a smoke ring. He said, "Since you didn't write it, but today, your poem has been spread all over Chang'an City. You're famous." "I'm famous?" Zhang Feng was stunned. He pointed to his nose and asked, "Is there an immortal?" Lao Tzu just said it casually. "How did it spread to Chang'an City?" "Because you've been eavesdropped." Chapter 848. Had he been eavesdropped on? Zhang Feng's hair stood on end when he heard this. Which bastard dared to eavesdrop on Lao Tzu? There were three kinds of people that Zhang Feng hated the most in his life. The first kind was gossiping. If Zhang Feng encountered this, he would be beaten up in the future. However, if he was in the Tang dynasty, he would definitely cut off that person's tongue. The second kind was those who secretly agreed but secretly disobeyed and betrayed. However, Zhang Feng hated this kind of eavesdroppers the most. They were the most detestable kind. There was no privacy at all. How could he play? This time, Zhang Feng unexpectedly became famous because of this eavesdropper. Li Chengqian saw this and said, "It's 3 students. They are now kneeling in front of Mr. Bo Shi's door as punishment." "Students? What's the point of keeping such students? Throw them off the mountain and don't let them take a step up the mountain for the rest of their lives." Zhang Feng was also furious. Li Chengqian saw this and sighed slightly. "This is all your fault." Zhang Feng pointed at his nose and laughed angrily. "Good fellow, how can you blame this on me? Yes, these students came up the mountain to study. Look at them during this time. These people are working as coolies. Do you think they can be balanced? And the most important thing is that you taught us alone during this time. This makes people jealous. You have a big mouth. From time to time, you would come up with amazing famous sayings. This made the students on the mountain even more restless. Other than when you close the door, under normal circumstances, there are people squatting outside your door at all times, waiting for your famous sayings." Yes. Hearing this, Zhang Feng's hair stood on end. Was there still privacy? Was there still human rights? Zhang Feng stared at Li Chengqian and said, "Don't you have servants on the mountain? Could it be that these servants were all incompetent? Don't they care about this? Li Chengqian spread his hands. They didn't do anything shameful. Besides, this kind of thing doesn't violate the Academy's rules. You didn't change the Academy's rules. Other than craftsmen, students are generally allowed to move freely at night. So, Li Chengqian shrugged. This kind of thing, he really couldn't care less. There had never been such a law in the Tang dynasty. This was a moral issue and could only be strictly educated. If there were any serious consequences, the government would take action. Zhang Feng was so angry that his whole body trembled. Big flat cake. Remember this. Tomorrow, we'll make the rules now. You'll be in charge. Carve it on the gate at the foot of the mountain. All right. Do go, said indifferently. Then, he took out the brush and ink that he always carried with him and unfolded it. Students are not allowed to eavesdrop. Those who are caught will have their legs broken and will never be allowed to enter any place under my name for the rest of their lives. Students are not allowed to gossip, not allowed. Zhang Feng listed 9 of the Academy's commandments in one breath, and the eavesdropper was the first one. It could be seen that Zhang Feng was really angry. This was also the reason why they waited here alone for Zhang Feng. Most importantly, these people had been idle for too long. No one could sit still if they did these things all day long. The key was that Zhang Feng treated them differently. How could they be willing? That would be the real deal. Li Chengqian stared at Zhang Feng until his anger subsided. Then he asked, Fengzi, when do you plan to start teaching these people officially? If you don't teach them now, they will go crazy. This was a big problem. Zhang Feng heard this and his anger subsided a lot. After a moment of silence he said, How long will it take for the Academy's construction to be completed? I'm talking about the Academy's classes. Half a month. At the earliest, it will be half a month. Li Chengqian made a conservative estimate. Half a month. Zhang Feng touched his chin and thought for a while. Half a month it is. I'll go look for Mr. Bosher later. Tomorrow, we'll hold a general meeting of the Academy. The day after tomorrow, we'll select those who you think are outstanding and start the formal teaching. Differential treatment? You're still here? Wei Shuyu and the others couldn't help but frown and look at Li Chengqian. Li Chengqian didn't know what Zhang Feng was thinking. Seeing this, he could only say, Fengzi, this matter I think. Don't you think it's good? I want what I think. Zhang Feng interrupted Li Chengqian and said, Look at the current situation in the world. People are divided into different classes. Why can't my academy do the same? Although I've said before that everyone here is equal, there are always a few shining stars among them. These are the people we need to focus on nurturing. This way, everyone in the academy will have a sense of crisis and a spirit of improvement. If thousands of people were to be educated fairly, would you be the one to teach them? Or me? Or let Mr. Bosher and the others do it? It'll be a wonder if they don't die of exhaustion. Li Chengqian was speechless. Zhang Feng's words made sense. However, the current situation was that most of the construction on the mountain was basically completed, but those who came from Chang'an and the surrounding areas were still unwilling to leave the mountain. On the one hand, it was because they could fill their stomachs here. On the other hand, Zhang Feng's charm made these people reluctant to leave. That was why the current situation was created. There were more people and less work. Once this person was free, it would be a big deal. Zhang Feng also thought of this point. You guys go and look for Mr. Gon. If possible, leave all the things in the academy to the students. As for the people on the mountain, leave the necessary ones. The rest will go and build the rubber factory, as well as the textile factory, the smelting factory, and the paper factory. As for the food factory, don't touch it for the time being. Hearing this, Li Chengqian's face finally burst with a hint of ecstasy. Zhang Feng was finally going to be serious. Chapter 849. After finishing the conversation with Cheng Chumo and the others, Zhang Feng left. However, Li Chengqian and the others also successfully removed the task that Zhang Feng gave them. Last night, they thought for a long time. If they were to draw water from the waterfall, it was almost impossible to accomplish. Now that such a thing had happened, Zhang Feng was not in the mood to teach them what was called the wind-water method. After all, if these students who had nothing better to do were not taught well, then everything they did before would be in vain. This was the biggest problem. When Zhang Feng arrived, Yu Shernan and the others burst into laughter in Li Yuan's bamboo house. The most important thing was that they seemed to still be discussing Zhang Feng's new poem. At the door, 3 young men wearing linen shirts were standing neatly at the door, reciting the Tao Te Ching over and over again. Zhang Feng did not care about anything, directly shouting outside the door, "Student Zhang Feng greets several teachers." When the few people heard this, they suddenly burst into laughter again. "You see, we were just talking about this kid, and he came. Come in, the door is not locked." When Zhang Feng saw this, he pushed open the door. As soon as he entered the room, he saw that on the screen in the middle of the room, there was a piece of writing that had just been done. The ink had not yet dried. This was the poem that Zhang Feng made last night. Yu Shernan pointed to the poem on the screen and said, "This was written by you last night?" "Yes, I said it last night, but I did not write it." When he heard this, he asked, "Then how did the people in Chang'an know now this was also done by you?" Hearing this, Zhang Feng poured out his grievances. "Wronged. This student is wronged. This is all because of those damn people, spreading false information. Yes, it was the 3 bastards outside the door who eavesdropped and spread it out." When Yu Shernan heard this, he pointed to a futon below, motioning Zhang Feng to sit down, then he said, "Now, your poem is completely popular. Last night, these 3 boys relied on your poem to earn 3 beggars' chicken and 10 pounds of braised meat, do you know? My poem is so worthless?" Zhang Feng's eyes instantly became round. When Yu Shernan saw this, he laughed and scolded, "So you think the poem was sold cheap? This was spread from their hands. Do you know how much the second hand earned? How much? 300,000 strings. H dash." Even if Zhang Feng had a hunch, he was still shocked by this number. Which nouveau riche wanted to buy this? "Come to me. I don't want more. Even if you give me 100,000, I can make 180 poems for you in one night." "Don't be so greedy. Do you think this is a good thing?" When Ouyang Sun saw this, he glared at Zhang Feng and scolded him. In an instant, Zhang Feng immediately put away the greed on his face. "This student understands." Ouyang Sun nodded. "But your poem is excellent. As for the matter of you, we don't care. You just need to pay attention to the influence. But old man and others give you a piece of advice. Stay away from this person, or you won't even know how you died." This woman was so awesome? Zhang Feng didn't know how to ask, so he just nodded. "That's enough. There must be a reason for him to come here. Boy, the old scholar just went to the waterfall. You call him and we'll discuss the friendly match between Chang'an University and the Imperial College." Zhang Feng behaved like an obedient child. As soon as he went out, he saw the 3 people at the door and waved his hand. "Go and call the old scholar for me." Then Zhang Feng directly went back to the small bamboo house, regardless of whether they were willing or not. The few of them acted as if they didn't see him. They sipped their tea as they surrounded the piece of calligraphy and commented on it. After a while, the old scholar hurried into the bamboo house. At this time, they sat down reluctantly. After sitting down, Yu Shernan looked at the old scholar and said, "Brother Zihuai, you should tell us about the situation at the foot of the mountain." The old scholar looked at Zhang Feng and said, "I have told Fengzi about the situation at the foot of the mountain yesterday. The current situation is that we can either form our own Kuju team or change the method. Brother Boji and I have discussed it in Chang'an University. If it doesn't work, we can use Fengzi's military knowledge. Aren't old you and the others training now? When the time comes, we can call people from their place and win for sure." Yu Shernan and the others stopped smiling and stroked their beards. After a while, Ouyang Sun said, "Although it seems like there is no problem, military knowledge still belongs to generals and is biased towards our academy. Therefore, the old man thinks that it is better to have a Kuju team. What do you think? Didn't you just compose a poem last night? We are all Confucian scholars. Why don't we compete in poetry? I think so. His talent in poetry is unparalleled. Moreover, if we can win the Imperial College, Chang'an University and our White Deer College's reputation will soar again." The few of them discussed heatedly. On the contrary, Zhang Feng felt that he had come to the wrong place. "Once you've discussed this matter, just let me know and it'll be fine. Do you want me to sit here and listen to you argue? Do you have to?" Chapter 850. The discussion was lively and lively. He had even made proper arrangements for the aftermath of the victory. Zhang Feng finally couldn't listen to it anymore. He asked weakly, "May I ask, respected teachers, do you only need me for this friendly competition?" This question was out of the question. Everyone's fantasies were instantly shattered. After exchanging glances with each other, they coughed and returned to their seats. "By the way, Fengzi, why didn't you mention this earlier? Why don't you tell me your thoughts?" Yu Shernan pretended as if nothing had happened and asked while sipping his tea. Zhang Feng rolled his eyes and said, "I will listen to the arrangements of my respected teachers." The old scholar frowned slightly when he heard this. "Tell me, if poetry is not good enough, you can only participate in the mid-autumn hunt by playing Kuju. However, this mid-autumn hunt is significant. If we lose, Chang'an University will forever be inferior to Imperial College in Chang'an." Zhang Feng heard this and couldn't help but ask, "What if we don't participate in the mid-autumn hunt?" "Don't participate?" "This is organized by the Imperial College. It is held twice a year. If we don't participate, we won't have the chance to participate in the Imperial examination after graduation. Do you think we can refuse?" The old scholar explained to Zhang Feng in detail. Finally, Zhang Feng recalled the origin of the mid-autumn hunt in his mind. He couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. The students made it clear that the Imperial College wanted to intimidate Chang'an University. What were they doing? This was a slap in the face. Once Chang'an University lost, White Deer College's reputation would also be damaged. Now, Zhang Feng could only participate in the competition. However, he couldn't even find a Kuju team. What could he do? "Are you sure you can't find a Kuju team now?" Zhang Feng asked again. "If I can find one, why would I come to you?" Zhang Feng couldn't help but rub his chin. This time, the Imperial College was obviously targeting Zhang Feng. After all, Zhang Feng had been in the limelight recently. Why couldn't the Kuju team find him? Not necessarily. "Why don't we form our own Kuju team?" Zhang Feng said indifferently. But the moment he said that, Yu Shernan instantly extinguished his thoughts. "No, Kuju is just a form of entertainment. Moreover, it costs a lot of money and time. White Deer College is going to open in less than a month. Where would we find the time? Besides, the mid-autumn hunt is only 10 days away. Once the mid-autumn hunt ends, it will be the mid-autumn hunt poetry meet. Others may have the time, but where would you find the time?" Zhang Feng shrugged. "Then there's nothing I can do." It was really impossible to form a team in 10 days. Not to mention other things, he had seen Kuju in the Tang dynasty. It was simply a group fight. How was it football? They couldn't help but fall into deep thought again. But they were also annoyed. They just looked at Zhang Feng without saying a word. Zhang Feng couldn't sit still anymore. "Why are you looking at me?" "Why are we looking at you?" Yu Shernan glanced at Zhang Feng. "Chang'an University is yours. This White Deer College is also yours. Now that we're helping you think of a solution, you're just sitting there pretending to be a master?" "No. I'm innocent. I'm really innocent. You and the other teachers can help me. Why do I need to say anything?" Zhang Feng complained. But would Yu Shernan let him go? In the end, the old scholar coughed. "All right, we're already so old. Fengzi, tell us your opinion. After all, you have a lot of practical ideas." Zhang Feng lowered his head. He lit a cigarette and said, "Actually, I do have a solution. Old elementary scholar. Let me ask you, this hunt is compulsory, isn't it?" The old scholar nodded. Zhang Feng asked again, "If I don't choose Kuju or other sports, can I choose other sports?" The old scholar couldn't help but feel a little apprehensive. "You can, but you have to report it in advance. If the Imperial College accepts it, then the Ministry of Works will naturally allow it." Hearing the old scholar's words, Zhang Feng's mood instantly calmed down. If that was the case, then it would be easy. He had no way of starting a football team, but he did have a way to teach his younger brother how to play basketball within 10 days. And this included making a basketball. Now that he had rubber, it wouldn't be difficult to make a basketball. As long as he handed it over to Arkanon, it would be a piece of cake. In that case, even if there were only 8 days left, he could train him in a short time. The most important thing was that there was no such thing in the Tang dynasty. That was why Zhang Feng was confident that he could start a basketball team in such a short time. After 3 days of training, even a fool would know how to throw a ball into a basket. Thinking of this, Zhang Feng blew out a smoke ring and said, "If that's the case, I do have a plan. I don't know if it will work." "Tell me about it." The old scholar didn't dare to trust Zhang Feng too much. This kid was born in the year of the donkey. If he didn't pay attention, he would cause big trouble. Chapter 851. Yu Shernan and the others did the same. Seeing this, Zhang Feng sighed inwardly that he had met the wrong person. He then said, "Actually, this matter is very simple. My former teacher once told me about something called basketball. This thing." "Wait, what did you say?" "Basketball? What's that?" Zhang Feng had a headache. How should he explain to these people what basketball was? He thought about it and said, "It's not easy for me to explain it to you now. However, if you believe me, Chong'an University will definitely win this mid-autumn hunt. That's enough. How about it?" They looked at each other. In the end, it was Ouyang Sun who made the final conclusion. "We don't care what you're up to. However, we have to check it out in 5 days. Otherwise, we won't be confident." Zhang Feng shook his head. "Okay, then in 5 days, I'll invite you all down the mountain to watch a basketball game. However, I have a problem now. I hope you can help me." The biggest problem was solved. Yu Shernan laughed and scolded, "I knew you wouldn't come here for no reason. Tell me, is it because of these 3 students who were eavesdropping on you?" Zhang Feng nodded, and then said with deep hatred, "There are only 3 types of people who are the most ruthless in a student's life. The first type is those who specialize in stealing from others, and the second type is those who talk nonsense behind others' backs. That is the kind of people who are lazy and only talk nonsense. Therefore, I have just set 13 academy precepts. Later, Du Dabing will bring it over for all of you to review and revise. As for these people, I think it's best to expel them from the mountain." Ouyang Sun frowned slightly. "Isn't that a bad idea? White Deer College's reputation has just been established. If we expel them now, it will damage the reputation of the college." "No." Zhang Feng shook his head decisively. "These black sheep should be alerted to the fact that White Deer College provides free education. However, it doesn't mean that the college will accept anyone. Therefore, this student believes that it's best to expel him from this place." Zhang Feng's words were so convincing. The few of them didn't say anything. In the end, the old scholar asked worriedly, "What is the purpose of this? You couldn't have chased him down the mountain out of anger, could you?" Hearing this, Yu Shernan and the others couldn't help but look at Zhang Feng. Last night, they didn't need to think to know what Zhang Feng was doing in the room. They were all experienced people, so how could they not know? However, these few unlucky fellows just had to pretend at this time. Not only did they bump into Zhang Feng, but they also read out Zhang Feng's poem. This was the most important thing. Otherwise, if it was in the past, the commotion caused at this time would have made this brat laugh until his mouth was about to reach his ears. How could he fly into a rage out of humiliation? "No, I've thought about this for a long time." Zhang Feng shook his head. Currently, the construction of the college is about to be completed. With less work to do, these people have more ideas. Therefore, there are more people who have crooked thoughts. Therefore, it's time to rectify the atmosphere. Otherwise, they will really think that White Deer College has no rules at all. How can we manage them in the future? Yu Shernan praised as he stroked his beard. "You finally remembered what you wanted to do. I thought you would need some time to remember what you were doing." Zhang Feng's face stiffened. "I didn't think of this before. I'm so busy." "Busy?" Ouyang Sun laughed. "I think you're not doing your job properly. Moreover, don't think that old man doesn't know that you've selected some people. This is the most important thing. You ignored the thousands of students on the mountain and went to take care of those little fellows. It would be strange if nothing happened. The students only know that the consequences are serious now? To be honest, it's too late. Unless you treat everyone equally. Isn't the purpose of your school to treat everyone equally? Why, now you know the difference in treatment." How could Zhang Feng not know that Ouyang Sun was mocking him? He had indeed said such things before. However, when did this happen? Zhang Feng simply repeated what he had said to Li Chengqian and the others, especially the key point of why there was such a difference in treatment. Kid, the reason for the difference in treatment is mainly because there are too many monks on the mountain and not enough gruel. There are thousands of students, but there are only 4 of you as teachers. Even with me, it's not enough. So, Yu Shernan nodded and asked. Zhang Feng continued. So my idea is to first select a few outstanding people from these people and undergo the first step of training. Then, let these people lead the next batch of people, and then the next batch of people will lead the new people. In this way, the old students can also review the old and learn new things, and the teachers and the others can also relax a little. Otherwise, the academy won't be able to operate normally in the future. This was Zhang Feng's further improvement of the class division system in the Tang dynasty. It was also called the batch system. It was easy to run an academy, but it was inevitable that there would be some people with a foundation among these people. If they were put together, would they be taught how to read? Or what to teach them? Neither side was willing to do so. Therefore, in the end, Zhang Feng could only come up with such a clever idea. After the establishment of Chang'an University, Zhang Feng once talked about the 6 principles. However, because of the establishment of the Science and Technology Department, he put this matter aside. Now that he mentioned it, the old scholar suddenly understood and said, "That's right." Feng Zi once said this set of principles when he first opened Chang'an University. Brother Bashi, think about it carefully. I once said it. Yu Shernan and the others couldn't help but frown slightly. Are you talking about that? Chapter 852. The old scholar nodded and said, "Yes, it's the class system I told you about before." But later, this kid basically didn't care about Chang'an University anymore. Besides, Brother Boji also resigned from the position of Crown Prince's master and came to Chang'an University, so I didn't mention it. If Fengzi didn't mention it, I would have forgotten about it. Hearing that, it took Yu Shernan and the others a long time before they finally remembered what the old scholar had told them in his letter. They frowned again and pondered for a long time. Yu Shernan smiled and said, "Old guys, this kid dislikes us for eating on the mountain and not working." Zhang Feng was shocked when he heard that. He was wronged. This was a great injustice. "Master, you must be joking. Even if you ask me to serve you for a lifetime, it would be my honor." "Come on, we're just kidding." Chu Suiliang looked at Zhang Feng with a smile and said, "However, you brat, are you really planning to raise us like pigs? If we don't do something when we're provided with good food and drink every day, won't we be sneered at by others? All right, leave the matters on the mountain to us. As for the later matters, such as the printing of books, you don't have to worry about them. We'll naturally look for you when we need you. For the time being, you just have to settle the matters of the autumn hunt." Zhang Feng heard that and breathed a deep sigh of relief. "I understand. Well, since things are clear, kid, send a jar of white wine here. Let's discuss this matter carefully." "There's no white wine." Zhang Feng waved his hand repeatedly. "You still want to lie to us? If Brother Zihuai didn't come yesterday, you were going to eat it alone?" Zhang Feng shouted that he was wronged. But it didn't help. Finally, he gritted his teeth and nodded. "Well, okay. Then I'll leave first." While speaking, Zhang Feng left in a huff. After Zhang Feng left, Chu Suiliang held his big belly and said, "I told you this kid was hiding something, right? You don't believe me? Ha ha ha, this brat is really crafty." The old scholar opened his mouth, but didn't know what to say. After the few of them joked around for a while, Yu Shernan said with a serious expression, "Everyone, now that you know the situation on the mountain and at the foot of the mountain, it is not reliable. However, there are some good people in charge of external affairs, so the rest will have to depend on the few of us for the time being. I think that we should get those few brats to come over first and start teaching from tomorrow onwards. It's okay to teach, but the key is how to teach. The new building of the academy is not ready yet. We can't teach in the open air, right?" Seeing this, they couldn't help but put away the smiles on their faces, and their expressions became serious. "If it doesn't work, we really need to teach in the wild. Otherwise, there won't be anything to do on the mountain. Once people are free, they will stir up trouble. Once they stir up trouble, the mountain will be in chaos. Once chaos happens, things will happen." Ouyang Sun frowned and continued, However, it's also okay to teach in the wild. After all, Confucius used to teach outside often. If you don't have any objections, Old Man will send someone to pass on the message now. Tomorrow morning. Will it officially start? Wait a moment. Chu Suelyong waved his hand and said, teaching is teaching, but where and how to teach needs to be decided first. Brother Zihuai, don't just sit there. Tell us about the teaching philosophy of Chong'an University, and we can discuss going down the mountain to report the situation. Hearing this, the old scholar raised his eyelids and said, Fengzi, I leave the things on the mountain to you. Of course, I have no right to say anything. Hearing this, Yu Shernan laughed and said, Look, Brother Zihuai is crying out for that brat. Come on, Brother Zihuai, we were just joking with that brat. You took it seriously? It's really. Let's drop this matter for now. Let's talk about this matter first. What do you think? Teaching was a matter of great importance. Once there was a problem, it would be a big problem. In this way, although the teaching did not pay attention to bathing and burning incense, the basic ceremony was still necessary. But at this time, everything in the academy was not ready, so it was useless to say more. This was the biggest problem. Although the old scholar was dissatisfied with their approach, he also knew the importance of this matter. He could not help stroking his beard and thinking for a while, then slowly said, I just saw the waterfall. It's a good place. The meaning of the jujube tree is good, and the gurgling water is quite poetic. In ancient times, Confucius and Meng taught under the jujube tree. Today, the four great Confucians will teach under the jujube tree. Yu Shernan and the others at this time looked a little confused. In their inherent thinking, didn't the teaching need to be in a clean room? Now what kind of teaching was this? Sun Simiao, who had been speaking up for them, said faintly, In fact, you all pay too much attention to things that look good on the outside. An old farmer in the field teaching a skill to a young child is also teaching. A cook chopping firewood and carrying water in the kitchen is also teaching a skill. An old cow plowing the land and following the calves is also teaching. Why should we care about appearances? Hearing this, Yu Shernan and the others could not help but feel a chill in their hearts. Sun Simiao reminded them in an instant. Involuntarily, Jekka nodded with some guilt and said, Brother Sun is right. We pay too much attention to these things of Su Hua. Let's go, old guys. Since we became great Confucians, we have been away for a long time. Ma Zhou, let me ask you something. Answer me honestly. Zhang Feng interrupted Ma Zhou's nagging as if he was presenting a treasure. Do you only slaughter the toothed pigs, or do you slaughter them together with the sows? Ma Zhou heard and was a little confused. The sows need to give birth, but Butcher Zhang on the mountain refused to let us slaughter them. Old Gao also said that there was no need. Who said so? Zhang Feng asked and then pointed at the door of the pig farm. The two of them then entered Ma Zhou's room on the second floor. Before the two of them sat down, Butcher Zhang brought his son and Old Gao, whose hands were covered in blood, up to the second floor. Ayaya, Fengzi, why didn't you tell us that you were coming? We should at least clean up this place. Look at this mess. Clean up, clean up. Butcher Zhang hurriedly cleaned up the room and kicked Xiaohu Zhang. Why aren't you making tea for your brother Fengzi? No need, I just passed by here to take a look. By the way, Xiaohu, I think the academy will officially start teaching tomorrow. You should go too. Don't always deal with the pigs. Butcher Zhang's face trembled. He hurriedly asked in a trembling voice, Fengzi, you said Xiaohu can go too? Didn't I say it before? I want Xiaohu to become the best butcher in the Tang dynasty. I will do what I say, but you let him stay here all day. That's your fault. How can he be successful like this? Butcher Zhang was overjoyed. He kicked Xiaohu Zhang's butt and roared, Why aren't you kowtowing to your brother Fengzi, no, your teacher? Xiaohu Zhang knelt down with a thud. Zhang Feng was speechless. Get up. I said that kneeling in the academy is not allowed. This is the last time. Butcher Zhang, I told you last time to help at the foot of the mountain. Why did you go up the mountain again? Hearing that, Zhang Tufu pointed at the dense swarm of pigs on the back mountain outside and said, Isn't it because we can't fit all these pigs? I'm always worried about letting this brat and Ma Zhou herd the pigs. Besides, I'm worried about leaving Elder Gao here alone. Butcher Zhang had worked with pigs all his life. Although the food factory was very suitable, there were too many butchers there. It didn't matter if he was there or not. However, it was different on the mountain. Nothing here could do without him. Pigs, cows, sheep, chickens, ducks. Which one of them didn't need him to take care of? He wouldn't be at ease if he left it to an outsider. Zhang Feng stared into Butcher Zheng's eyes. Seeing that he sincerely wanted to stay on the mountain, he took out a feed formula from his chest and said, "Well, since you like dealing with pigs, cows, and sheep so much, I'll give you an important task now." Zhang Feng pointed at a piece of paper and said, "This is the feed formula list. You just need to mix it according to the ratio. Now, leave the things here to Elder Gao. I'll arrange for someone to deal with it. You go to Chang'an and open a feed factory as fast as you can. As for the rest, you can go to Ligan and ask him to deal with it for you." Then I heard that the pigs in the other prefectures are being fed according to our method, but it's not a good idea to keep eating. Since you know how to feed pigs, do you want to go to the other prefectures of the Great Tang? Chapter 854. Hearing this, Zhang Tufu's eyes turned red. His breathing became a little hurried. "Fengzi, why do you have to be like this? These things are all for your future. Just take it. We're all neighbors of Tong Hui Fong. When you're rich, will you forget about me? There's a saying that when a man achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs will ascend to heaven. Now that they all have things to do, and you're still here, I'm a little worried. Moreover, I'm not at ease leaving the pigs matter to others, so I can only leave it to you. Old Zheng, don't decline anymore. If you decline again, my family will be jealous." Old Gao said with a faint smile. Hearing this, Zhang Tufu took the paper from Zhang Feng's hand and treated it like a treasure. Seeing this, Old Gao burst out laughing. Zhang Feng waved his hand and said, "All right, go and tell your family about this now. Your family members are taking good care of the chickens and ducks, so let them continue to take care of the chickens and ducks on the mountain. When the time comes and you've established a foothold at the foot of the mountain, take them over. I won't help you support your family anymore." Hearing this, Zhang Tufu took a deep breath, smacked his lips, and bowed deeply. He pulled Zhang Xiaohu's ear and left. After he left, Zhang Feng looked at Old Gao and asked with a smile, "I've given him all the good things. Old Gao, don't you have anything to say?" Old Gao shrugged and pointed at Zhang Feng's ear. "Don't break this thing for me. There's also wine and meat. Otherwise, one night I'll have to take a knife and sit in your room for an entire night." Hearing this, Zhang Feng instantly felt a chill in his crotch. Hee, Old Gao, you really know how to joke. How can I leave you out of this?" While speaking, Zhang Feng hurriedly took out a wooden box from his bosom and stuffed it into Old Gao's hand. Then he said, "The matter on this mountain is very important. Old Gao, what do you think after these pigs are killed?" "What can I think? There are a few young eunuchs under my command who want to follow me. If you have a way, tell Lao Li and have him bring them out of the palace for me. It's fine as long as they stay by my side. It's hard in the palace. Would looking for Lao Li work?" Zhang Feng was very suspicious. However, he still nodded. "I'll inform Lao Li about this matter later. With Lao Li's current connections, a few eunuchs shouldn't be a problem." When Elder Gao heard this, he nodded in satisfaction. "When the matters here are settled, don't worry, old man won't go anywhere. If you want me to stay, I'll stay on the mountain to look after the pig farm for you. As for my subordinates, I plan to let them follow old Zheng. You also know that other than this mountain, the pigs in other places haven't been butchered yet. So, this is an industry, a skill that can fill their stomachs. You don't have any objections, right? What opinion could Zhang Feng have?" In this era, who would be willing to enter the palace and become a eunuch if they had the slightest means? It was only because their families were so poor that they couldn't afford to eat that they sold their children. The fact that Old Gao was still thinking about the eunuchs in the palace while he was here undoubtedly made Zhang Feng feel a little touched. "Don't worry, you can discuss this matter with Tufu Zheng. I, Zhang Feng, won't take a single share of the profits from this matter." "How can that be?" Old Gao was unhappy. However, Zhang Feng insisted. This kind of money couldn't be touched. After that, Zhang Feng said, "Old Gao, let me ask you, how many sows are pregnant with piglets on the mountain now?" I mean, how many sows are selected from the best breeds? Without thinking, Old Gao stretched out his hand and slapped him. 50. Good. These 50 pigs. I hope you can rear them in another pen and then select a batch of the best breeds from these pigs. After 3 generations, the stench on the breeding pigs will be completely gone. Moreover, at that time, if they are still fed according to the feed, they will grow to be 200 catties fat pigs in 3 months. Old Gao was a little doubtful about whether there was something wrong with his ears. 3 months? 200 catties? Now, if the situation on the mountain was normal, they could reach 200 catties in half a year. This was already an auspicious sign from the heavens. In these 3 months. What was that? Then, without waiting for Old Gao to speak, Zhang Feng continued. What I mean is that all the piglets that have been slaughtered on the mountain now are sold to the public. This new breed of pig will all be pushed out. In this way, the market for feed and pork, as well as the importance of pork, will be opened up. Zhang Feng's words instantly shocked Old Gao. It wasn't that he hadn't thought about this matter, but he hadn't figured out how to do it. The sales of pork in Chang'an City were improving day by day. Even the rich families had accepted this kind of pork. This was all the formula that relied on Zhang Feng's magical herbs. But now, was Zhang Feng going to make this matter public? At this moment, Ma Zhou was completely stunned. Ever since Zhang Feng asked Zhang Tufu to get the feed, he had guessed that Zhang Feng might be up to something big. But at this moment, Zhang Feng's words still gave him a big shock. Old Gao said worriedly, if we do this, then these pigs will have nothing to do with us anymore. Zhang Feng was a little speechless. Why? Do you really want White Deer College to take down the pig farm? Chapter 855. Actually, there was no need for the pig farm on the mountain to continue. The main reason why it was still being kept was to cultivate excellent breeds. Moreover, the people from Quan and had seen these hundreds of thousands of pigs being driven up the mountain. If they were not given an explanation and continued to drive them away, where would Zhang Feng put his face? This was the most important thing. However, the most important thing that made Zhang Feng determined was the mid-autumn hunt. The mid-autumn hunt was usually held in the royal forest in the Qinling Mountains. However, due to the locust plague this year, there was no one in the forest. Zhang Feng was certain that the mid-autumn hunt this time would most likely be held in the blue sky Jade Mountain, which was near Mount Shao. As for Jade Mountain, Yuli Fei Mountain was relatively closer. When the time came, he just needed to invite these people to the food factory on the mountain. Hehe. Regardless of whether they were from the Ministry of Works or the Ministry of Rights, if they could resist Lao Tzu's culinary skills, it would be his loss. At this time, after eating and drinking, would the pork and pig's gizzards be a problem? That was what Zhang Feng wanted to do the most. Whose money was the easiest to earn? The emperor's money. Who had more money than the emperor? In addition, the emperor had already made a lot of money from the cooperative this time. If he did not take the opportunity to earn some money, he would be letting down Zhang Feng's cooperative. Thinking of this, Zhang Feng could not help but laugh. Cough, cough. Ma Zhou saw Old Gao laughing while looking at Zhang Feng. Ma Zhou also wanted to laugh, but he did not dare to. He could only remind Zhang Feng to stop laughing. At this time, Zhang Feng also realized that he had lost his composure. He touched his nose and said, "Sorry, I was distracted. Let's get back to the topic. Old Gao, the farm on the mountain will definitely be closed in the future. However, I will set up an experimental base here to breed new breeds of pigs and other things. So, if you are interested, I will have to trouble you to help me." Experimental base. Old Gao was a little confused and asked, "Is it the same thing as this new breed of pig we're making now?" Zhang Feng nodded and then shook his head. "Not exactly. Other than pigs, I will also have people bring in some plants from the outer realms. For example, a new type of corn and other things. Corn, also known as millet. The rice of this era. They were basically called millet. As for this thing, it tasted hee. However, it was still too early to talk about these things. It was just drawing a big picture. The truth was to keep people here. As for Old Gao, he could survive in such a complicated place like the palace. He had no problems with interpersonal relationships and management. Zhang Feng was relieved to leave this place to him. However, this was not the main point. The main point was that Zhang Feng wanted to keep Ma Zhou in this experimental base. That week, he was very meticulous. Very suitable for this job. Zhang Feng looked at Ma Zhou and said, "Ma Zhou, what do you plan to do in the future? The pig will definitely not let you raise it. You've seen it for yourself. Have you thought about what you'll do in the future?" Ma Zhou did not even have to think about it. He said, "Take the imperial examination and become an official in the imperial court." Good ambition. However, do you really think that you can only learn things by becoming an official in the imperial court? This time, Ma Zhou was really asked the right question. In his understanding, as well as most people's understanding, becoming an official in the imperial court and passing the imperial examination were important things that could change their fate. Nothing could make them rise to prominence in one step more than this. Zhang Feng pressed him step by step. "Are you sure this is what you want?" Zhang Feng's question really stumped Ma Zhou. People have to have a goal in life. However, if everyone wants to pass the imperial examination and become an official in the imperial court, think about it. In this world, how many people can really pass the imperial examination? There are people who spend their entire lives fighting for this dream even when they are old. They even forget that they live in straw huts and eat. So, although I'm confident that you can pass the imperial examination in 3 years, what do you want to do after high school? Look at Dr. Sunday. He didn't become an official in the imperial court. Look at his achievements now. Even the emperor has to stand up to greet him. Did he choose to become an official in the imperial court? No. Passing the imperial examination is just a hope for you now. When you achieve it, what do you want to do? Ma Zhou's heart suddenly became cold. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Master, please enlighten me." Looking at Zhang Feng, Gao could not help narrowing his eyes slightly. At this time, Zhang Feng's words became more and more incomprehensible. Was this why the emperor and the crown prince were attracted to him? Zhang Feng continued, "Sit down." After Ma Zhou sat down, Zhang Feng said, "People always need a goal. At this time, passing the imperial examination is your current goal. But before you achieve this goal, what do you want to do? What are you going to do after you achieve it?" Hearing this, Ma Zhou thought for a moment and said, "Before the imperial examination in 3 years, I will listen to your arrangement. I will do whatever you ask me to do." Zhang Feng frowned slightly. "I'm asking your own opinion. I don't need you to read it out." Hearing this, Ma Zhou hurriedly wanted to get up, but he was pressed down by Zhang Feng. "Master, in fact, I think it's quite good now. I like it very much. I just heard that you want to build an experimental base here. I want to stay in the experimental base. Hao Chu Jun and others have things to do now. Chen Tiniu and others also have things to do. Even the students in the paper mill are working. If I leave here, I really don't know what to do. The most important thing is that I like this way of life. I'm already enjoying watching the growth of pigs every day." Gao was a little shocked when he heard this. Was this place so good? It smelled of pig dung. How was it good? Was this what a decent person should do? But Zhang Feng's eyes lit up when he heard this. It seemed that he was not wrong about Ma Zhou. This time, ever since it was recorded in history that after raising a horse, he really had a strange hobby. "Good, very good." Zhang Feng patted Ma Zhou's shoulder and said, "Actually, I plan to build a research institute on the mountain. The dynamics, air resistance, atmospheric pressure, and so on that I asked you to learn, as well as the multiplication and division problems, are all preparations for the research institute in the future. And this place is naturally part of the research institute. When we were on the way here, I felt that you were suitable for botany and zoology. Now it seems that you are really suitable. Don't worry, from today onwards, as long as you work hard enough, I will definitely nurture you within 3 years. At that time, even if I, Zhang Feng, have to throw away my face, I will have elder son teach you how to differentiate between plants and their characteristics. At that time, when you become a high scholar, I will naturally have more important things for you." Ma Zhou. As he spoke, Zhang Feng's expression turned serious. "Are you willing to become someone who surpasses elder son?" Ma Zhou did not dare to be careless. He hurriedly bowed. "I am willing." Chapter 856. Ma Zhou was very excited. Finally, the day of his success had arrived. Ma Zhou was very poor when he was young. He didn't even have enough food to eat. The reason why he wanted to participate in the imperial examination was because of his obsession. Only by doing so could he be considered outstanding. However, Zhang Feng's words just now seemed to have opened the door to another world for Ma Zhou. Ma Zhou's eyes instantly lit up. What about after high school? After achieving his wish, what did he want to do? He really didn't think about it. At this time, Zhang Feng's words woke him up from his dream. Ma Zhou couldn't help but have the urge to cry. Previously, when Zhang Feng taught them aerodynamics and other things that they couldn't understand, Ma Zhou listened very seriously. However, he was also calculating in his heart. This thing seemed profound, but it was completely different from what he needed. But now, Zhang Feng's words, especially that research institute, made Ma Zhou see the light. He didn't expect to surpass Dr. Sun's achievements in the future. As long as he could achieve the same achievements as Dr. Sun, it didn't matter if he didn't take the imperial examination. Zhang Feng also bowed to Ma Zhou and then said slowly, "Let's go. Since it's decided, I'm also in the mood today. I'll bring you to broaden your horizons. Don't always live in your own world." Ma Zhou heard this and bowed again. Then, he stood behind Zhang Feng without looking sideways. His goal was finally achieved. Zhang Feng didn't stay any longer. After all, the smell of pig dung here wasn't just a little strong. It was a little pungent. "Old Gao, that kid will come to see you another day. I'll take my leave first." Old Gao also stood up and cupped his hands. "This old man can eat and drink well here. There's no need to worry. You can go do your own things." Out of the pig farm, Zhang Feng instantly felt refreshed. The matter of the pig farm had already been discussed by some people. Moreover, it was to provide a full meal for the people on the mountain. Now, with the consumption of the food processing factory, the pigs on the mountain would be exhausted one day. At that time, what would happen? This question, Zhang Feng didn't even need to think about. Throw them all out. In the future, no one would bring up the 300,000 pigs again. Not only would he be at a disadvantage during the mid-autumn hunt, but he would also lose face during the mid-autumn poetry meet. What is a pig? No matter which era it was, this thing was synonymous with despicable. Therefore, Zhang Feng was in a hurry to finish the piggery before the mid-autumn hunt. And the most important thing was to trick Ma Zhou into staying here. That was the most important thing. Other than Ma Zhou, no one else could do it. The main thing was that he was not as meticulous as Ma Zhou. Zhang Feng clasped his hands behind his back and hummed a song. Ma Zhou followed closely behind Zhang Feng like a lackey. Just like that, the two of them followed the mountain stream and arrived at the workshop. At this moment in the forging workshop, because he knew that Zhang Feng was trying to goad him, his appearance had changed drastically. Under Zhang Feng's strong request, the guards here had been driven away. The shackles on these people were all thrown into the furnace. Even the workshop, which was only 100 square meters, was excavated by these people. They used wood to extend more than half of the area on the edge of the cliff. Smelting furnaces made of earth were built along the mountain wall. Some people even used bamboo to lead the water from the mountain stream to the workshop. Seeing this scene, Zhang Feng wished that Chen Tiniu and the other lazy guys didn't come to see it. Even the people from the western regions could think of it, and they had even learned the sharp irrigation method that he had personally taught countless times. How could any of them learn it? This was simply. The arrival of the two of them made the blacksmiths from the western region scream. They seemed to be reporting, but also seemed to be on guard. After all, the things that Zhang Feng had said and done had made them worried and excited. They hadn't seen Zhang Feng for a few days. Now that they saw him again, they were a little worried. Mokido and Arkanon hurried out of the cave when they heard the news. Except for their eyes, their bodies were pitch black, as if they had drilled into a coal mine. When they saw Zhang Feng and Ma Zhou, but did not see Niu Jinda and the others behind Zhang Feng, they heaved a deep sigh of relief. They turned around and shouted a few times. Then, the crowd gradually quieted down. The two of them ran towards Zhang Feng. "Honorable Dean, are you here to inspect?" "Ha ha ha. No. I'm just here to take a look. You guys go ahead. Don't mind me." Zhang Feng waved at the crowd in the distance. Then, he pointed at the rocks outside the workshop and sat down. "What are you two doing? Why do you look like this?" After walking closer, Zhang Feng saw that the two of them had curly hair that resembled the hair of a golden lion king. It had long been burnt yellow by the smoke, and there were even some bumps and hollows due to the fire sparks. Hearing this, the two of them looked at each other. Arcanon then said, "It was because of the smelting that Mr. Dean mentioned." There were a few mishaps. The furnace exploded 3 times and the fire was extinguished 5 times. In the end, the two of us dug a cave in the mountain wall and prepared to test the power of the fire in the cave to see if it could be improved to a higher level. Otherwise, with the current temperature of the fire, let alone the steel that you mentioned, we can't even smelt fine iron. Unable to condense high temperature? Zhang Feng frowned slightly. That's impossible. In his previous life, he often watched the live broadcasts of those awesome outdoor people. Didn't those awesome people smelt like this? This, Zhang Feng seemed to have thought of something. He waved his hand and said, let's go take a look at your furnaces first." Chapter 857. Seeing this, the two of them hurriedly got up and led Zhang Feng into the workshop. It was early July now, and although it was not as hot as before, the temperature in the workshop was extremely high. From a distance, there seemed to be only 10 strange forging furnaces burning red in the workshop. However, as soon as Zhang Feng walked in, he realized that the forging furnaces that old Li and the rest had brought over had been dismantled by these people, and there was nothing left of them. In the place where the mountain wall used to be, there was a furnace about 6 meters tall. At this moment, a few Western regioners, who were only wearing loincloths, were desperately filling it with charcoal. Arcanon and Makoko led Zhang Feng around these people and entered a natural cave that was only 10 meters deep. Everyone looked at Zhang Feng. Although they were not vigilant, they did not pay any attention to him either. It was as if Zhang Feng was invisible. Zhang Feng did not care about this. He followed Arcanon and Makoko into the expanded cave. As soon as they entered the cave, a wave of heat almost made Zhang Feng faint. More importantly, there was a smell of cumin, which was unique to the Western regioners. Zhang Feng resisted this strange smell and frowned slightly as he looked at the furnace that was dug out by hand from the mountain wall. This furnace was ventilated using both ears. However, in this enclosed environment, there was no way to vent. The fire could not be concentrated at all. "Be careful, Mr. Dean. The molten iron will be ready soon. Please stand back and wait for me to release the molten iron for you to see." While speaking, Arcanon and Mokido talked for a while. Then, Arcanon picked up a small iron hammer and an iron rod and fiercely hammered a few times at the bottom of the furnace that was covered in mud. As the hammer fell, the area was filled with a scarlet light. Makoko shouted in a low voice, "Be careful, Mr. Dean. Open the furnace." Clang! Algernon swung his hammer down. Drops of crimson liquid flowed out from the cracks created by the iron rod. Once the crimson liquid came into contact with the ground, a sizzling sound could be heard. Mokido hurriedly picked up a hoe and dug a trench in the ground to guide the molten iron to flow out. Although the furnace looked very big, however, there was very little molten iron. Not long after, the molten iron flowed out of the mountain, and the molten iron stopped dripping from the furnace. Only then did Arcanon order the others to bring buckets of water and pour it on the ground around the molten iron. In an instant, pitch-black smoke mixed with the smell of iron filled the entire smelting workshop. Zhang Feng couldn't take it anymore. Covering his mouth and nose, he hurriedly fled the workshop. Ma Zhou was completely dumbfounded. It was his first time coming to this workshop, so how would he know that all the expensive ironware and bronzeware that he usually knew about were produced this way? Not long after, the smoke was blown away by the wind in the valley. Arcanon called for Zhang Feng in the workshop. As soon as he entered the workshop, Arcanon handed a piece of newly smelted iron to Zhang Feng. "Mr. Dean, the temperature is still not high enough. This is the kind of steel you mentioned." Zhang Feng frowned slightly. He took out a delicate curved knife from his waist and used the back of the knife to gently cut the palm-sized piece of iron. In an instant, the knife left a mark on the piece of iron that was still a little red. "No, this is still iron. Was there a problem with the steps?" Zhang Feng couldn't help but remove the videos in his mind. He searched for the physics knowledge he had learned in high school and college, as well as the methods to forge iron. Zhang Feng could not help but slowly figure out the reason. Looking at the charcoal in the corner, Zhang Feng asked, "You've been using this before?" Arcanon nodded. Is there anything else that can replace this? Zhang Feng seemed to have realized the problem. He turned around and asked Ma Zhou. Ma Zhou, do you know that the Tang dynasty uses charcoal to forge iron? Ma Zhou didn't know what Zhang Feng was trying to say, but he still nodded. Yes, it's charcoal. Go and call Li Gan. I have something to talk to him about. Zhang Feng frowned. After Ma Zhou left in a hurry, Zhang Feng squatted next to a strange smelting furnace on the edge of the cliff, carefully watching a craftsman from the western regions forge. When the charcoal in the furnace burned to a certain degree, the craftsman would put in a few more pieces of charcoal and then take out some of the ashes from the bottom of the furnace. He did this repeatedly without stopping. Zhang Feng pointed at the craftsman and asked, "Do you smelt like this?" "Yes." Both Arjunon and Mokido nodded. Then Mokido said, "I've visited the Tang dynasty before. At that time, it wasn't called the Tang dynasty yet. Although the method of forging in the Tang dynasty is different from mine, they still use the same method. There's no difference." Hearing this, Zhang Feng finally found the crux of the problem. He asked calmly, "Are you sure that the Tang dynasty used this method to smelt iron?" "Yes." Zhang Feng was speechless. No wonder they couldn't forge iron. It would be strange if they could forge iron using this method. In this era, there should have been coal a long time ago. Why didn't they use that thing? Why did they keep the temperature of the flame at a certain point? Smelting is such a simple thing. Why is it so difficult in this era? Chapter 858. Coal. As far as Zhang Feng knew, apart from electricity, it was the best combustion-supporting material that could maintain a constant temperature, apart from natural gas and gas. Zhang Feng would not dare to make it even if it was given to him now. That thing could kill people. Zhang Feng did not say anything else. While waiting for Li Qian, he was also thinking of more ways to smelt steel. There was another way, which was to hammer and smelt. However, there was not enough time. The sword that old Li had promised him had not been delivered yet, and he had not seen the person either. Needless to say, this old man was probably very busy right now. If Zhang Feng couldn't come up with this within a month, then he wouldn't be able to get Emperor Yang's personal sword. Even if old Li gave it to him, he wouldn't be able to do it. This steel was something that he needed now. Especially the gun. After getting the immortal cream, Zhang Feng was eager to make it for self-defense. It was not for anything else but to be safer when he went out in the future. Who knew how many pairs of eyes were watching him from below Shao Mountain? After a while, Li Chengqian arrived at the workshop breathlessly. The moment he entered the workshop, he could not stop wiping his sweat with a handkerchief. As he wiped his sweat, he pulled Zhang Feng and ran out. "Fengzi, let's go. Let's find a cool place. This place is too hot, isn't it?" The five of them left the smithy and instantly felt comfortable all over. Then, Li Chengqian asked, "Why are you looking for me? You made the steel?" Zhang Feng shook his head and asked, "Let me ask you, have you heard of coal?" Li Chengqian looked at Zhang Feng in surprise and nodded. "That's easy. Get some people to get me 10 carts of coal. I need it urgently." Li Chengqian was a little confused. "Fengzi, do you know what that thing is for?" "It's for burning. What can it do?" Zhang Feng impatiently snatched the handkerchief from Li Chengqian's hand and wiped the black sweat on his forehead. Li Chengqian felt a little heartache, but he couldn't care less. Li Chengqian naturally knew about this coal, but only some people in the palace, as well as some high-ranking officials and dignitaries, could afford to use it. And at this time, where could he go to get it? The weather was so hot, who was going to dig coal for him? The most important thing was that this thing was not called coal now, but stone charcoal. Li Chengqian also guessed some things from the conversation with Ma Zhou on the way. "Fengzi, do you know that not everyone can afford to use this thing?" Zhang Feng's face was full of question marks. F*CK. Isn't it just a piece of rotten coal? You can't afford it? Li Chengqian felt a headache coming on. He pointed at Ma Zhou and said, "You tell him that I'm feeling a little suffocated." Ma Zhou was also a little confused, but since Li Chengqian had spoken, he could only whisper, "Teacher, this thing, other than those in the palace and the various princes and ministers, there really aren't many people who are qualified to use it. Also the price of the coal. How much for a cart?" Zhang Feng just remembered that this was the Tang dynasty, not the future. In the future, A bag of anthracite only cost 70 yuan, but there were still many people who couldn't afford it. Ma Zhou stretched out 2 fingers and made a peace sign. 2,000 strings of cash for a cart. So expensive. Zhang Feng was also a little surprised. Li Chengqian, how much money do we have in the account now? Is it enough to buy 10 carts? Li Chengqian sighed and looked at Zhang Feng as if he was looking at an idiot. He said 2,000 strings of cash for a stone. And in this kind of weather, unless it's winter, there are no merchants selling this thing at this time. Most importantly, this thing is basically in the hands of the Taiyuan Wang clan now. Even if the emperor wants it, he has to send a letter in advance. 5 surnames and 7 hopes? Zhang Feng's eyelids twitched when he heard this. This was really difficult to deal with. The Guanlong 8 great families controlled the trade routes, and the 5 surnames and 7 hopes controlled all the mineral veins and grain industries in the Tang dynasty. This matter was clearly recorded in history. With a little hint, Zhang Feng instantly understood. However, the matter of steel had already progressed to this point. Wouldn't it be a joke to give up at this time? Moreover, this charcoal was really not good. It could be used to melt glass and other things, but if you want to refine steel, then you have to get coal. Zhang Feng couldn't help but have a headache. He really didn't know that the control of coal mines in the Tang dynasty was so strict. Zhang Feng didn't give up and asked, apart from the Tang dynasty, are there any coal mines in Tubo and Tuyuhun? Yes, but now the situation in Tubo. Then immediately ask your people to find a way to get me some coal. Anyway, I'll say it right here. Without coal, let alone a gun, I can't even make a spear that can break through anything. Li Chengqian was shocked. Ma Zhou, Algernon, and Mokido were also shocked at this time. A spear that could break anything? What was that? Also, what was this flamethrower? Could it be that these 2 things that they had never heard of were the things that the dean talked about the other day? They couldn't help but have a trace of fire in their eyes. Chapter 859. Zhang Feng was silent. He was silent for a long time. He also thought for a long time in his mind. If the coal problem was not solved, it would be really difficult to get anything in the future, let alone other things. Zhang Feng looked at Li Chengqian and asked again, is there any way to get me a batch of coal now? It's possible. But this thing Zhang Feng did not want to listen to his explanation. He patted him on the shoulder with a smile and said, do you want me to give you a gun and let you show off? Yes. How could Li Chengqian not want to? He was about to go crazy thinking about it. It might not be easy to get it from others, but if Zhang Feng gave it away, it would be a different story. Then go and get me 10 carriages of coal. If you can get it for me before tonight, I'll owe you a favor. How about it? Li Chengqian was going crazy at this time. He just nodded no matter what Zhang Feng said. After that, Zhang Feng patted him on the shoulder and said, then why don't you go now? If you can't get it before tonight, I won't even give you a fire stick, let alone a gun. Okay, I'll go now. Li Chengqian left happily. If he wanted 10 carriages of coal, he really did not have it in the Chong and local treasury. But if he wanted 1 carriage, he could find a little bit of it. Even if his father knew, he would not blame him. After Li Chengqian left, Zhang Feng called Arkanon over again and said, actually, there is another way to get the thing I said. Arkinon's eyes lit up when he heard that. He hurried over. Director, this way is making steel with the earth method. Earth method. Is it a secret of the Tang dynasty? More than 30 craftsmen from the western regions immediately stopped their work and gathered around. Zhang Feng pointed at the forging table on the side, and then picked out 2 relatively strong men from the crowd. He took out a pair of tongs and took out a piece of red-hot, fist-sized iron from the fire. He threw it on the forging table and said, later, beat it until it's only the size of an egg and as thin as a leaf, and then come find me. When Li Gon brings the coal over at night, you guys can use coal instead of charcoal. However, you have to make sure that the coal is red-hot before you replace it. Raise the temperature of the flame as much as you can. Don't let the temperature of the flame fluctuate. After saying that, Zhang Feng no longer paid any attention to them. Arkanon was dumbfounded. Looking at the red-hot iron on the forging table, he was a little confused. Could this thing be hammered to that extent? However, since Zhang Feng said it, they had no choice but to do it. Moreover, Algernon was a madman. After hearing about Zhang Feng's forging method, he couldn't help but be eager to try it out. However, the fire. That was what attracted Algernon the most. At this time, as soon as Zhang Feng left, Mokito and the others couldn't help but come up and ask, "Old Algernon, what do you think about the problem of the flame's temperature? Also, is this forging method really effective?" Algernon smacked his lips. In fact, he also had doubts in his heart. "Well, I don't know if it will work or not, but if we can really master this kind of forging method, we can get rid of the slave status and also become famous in the Tang dynasty." "Isn't this attractive to you, Mokito? Haven't you always wanted to come to the Tang dynasty? Now that you're here, if we can really make the thing that Zhang Feng said and he's willing to teach us, we can really become the people of the Tang dynasty." On the other side. In fact, Zhang Feng was lazy and asked Mokito to make a basketball. But now, it seemed that he had to do it himself. Looking around, Zhang Feng suddenly realized that he really couldn't find a quiet place. After thinking about it, he called Huali, who was waiting for work at the mountain gate, and pointed to the foot of the mountain. The two of them hurried down the mountain. The matter of the rubber. Zhang Feng had been preparing. However, after the bicycle was made last time, the rubber was basically given to Chen Tinyu and the others to deal with. However, he still had a lump of rubber in his tavern. Now, the tavern seemed to be his last pure land. At 5:30 p.m., Zhang Feng and Ma Zhou returned to the tavern again. Looking at the modeled Uli tavern, Zhang Feng had some indescribable emotions. This was the first time Ma Zhou came to the tavern. However, he had long heard of the legend of the tavern. At this time, seeing Zhang Feng's solemn expression, he didn't dare to make a sound. He followed Zhang Feng into the tavern. Naturally, the most attractive thing was the poem that looked like scribbles on the wall of the tavern. Ma Zhou squatted on the ground to study the poem. Zhang Feng ignored him and went straight to the backyard. He took out his set of smelting equipment, set up a furnace, and lit a charcoal fire. Then, he pulled out a black iron pot from the firewood pile in the corner of the courtyard. The iron pot was a normal pot, but the bottom of the pot was covered in a layer of dust. It looked like mud. This was what Zhang Feng needed at this time. Rubber. Chapter 860. In Zhang Feng's tavern, a wisp of smoke slowly rose. The remaining people in Tonghui Lane who were strolling on the streets also noticed it. For a while, the news of Zhang Feng's return spread like wildfire. "Feng Zi is back." Zhang Feng returned to the tavern. "Didn't you want your distant cousin and nephew to go to Feng Zi's academy? Feng Zi is back." "What? What did you say?" "Zhang Feng, that brat is back. Let's go and have a look." On the other side, in Hengtong Private Bank, Qian Tong was fiddling with the beads on his abacus, calculating the accounts. The smile on his face never stopped. Some time ago, when he learned that he was going to go up the mountain to catch that unfilial son of his, Qian Wanli directly threw a stack of paper at his face. Qian Tong was stunned. He didn't even want to call him back. When Qian Tong knew that Zhang Feng had basically handed over the papermaking business to Qian Wanli, Qian Tong was so happy that he almost died. After that, Qian Wanli would go home every few days on the pretext of delivering paper to Chong En. Every time he went home, although Qian Wanli would only leave a piece of paper, it was the kind of paper that had not been cut. This time, Qian Tong was overjoyed. 2 days after the 300,000 pigs went up the mountain, the braised meat and the paper broke out in Chong'an at the same time. However, the paper seemed to have disappeared without a trace. It couldn't be found in Chong'an. Subsequently, the price of this kind of paper soared in Chong'an City. Even in the black market, a piece of paper the size of a palm could be sold for more than 100,000 coins. By chance, someone found out that Qian Tong's son was the manager of the papermaking business and couldn't help but pester him. Qian Tong was also a powerful person. He immediately took out the big piece of paper. The asking price is 5,000 strings of cash, and the highest bidder wins. Then, under his astonished gaze, this piece of paper was actually pocketed by a third-rank official of the Ministry of Works for the last 17,000 strings of cash. Although Qian Wanli would still come back every time, the amount of paper he brought was getting lesser and lesser. What's more, a lot of it was what Qian Wanli called waste paper. What made Qian Tong even angrier was that his silly son actually wanted him to give him a receipt, then happily took a few dozen strings of money and went back home, saying that it was for the public account. But none of this mattered. The matter of Hung Tong Bank having paper buy in it had made Qian Tong famous, and the business of his bank had also improved a lot. This made him smile so much that his teeth couldn't be contained. Master, master, something's wrong, something's wrong. While Qian Tong was happily fiddling with the beads on his abacus, a sharp voice that made him want to punch someone suddenly rang out. Qian Tong angrily grabbed the abacus and shouted, "Is your mother dead? Or is your father alive? This master said that when I'm settling accounts, no one is allowed to disturb me. Was your brain eaten by a dog?" When the servant heard this, he felt extremely wronged. He stammered, "Master, didn't you tell us to keep an eye on the Uli tavern?" Qian Tong was startled when he heard this, and when he thought about what the servant had shouted as soon as he came in, he hurriedly asked, "Tell me, what happened to the Uli tavern?" The tavern. Prince Zhang seems to have returned. There are a lot of people outside the tavern. Go, 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 prepare a sedan for old man, let's go to Tonghui Square. Qian Tong was overjoyed when he heard this. He was a businessman, and everything he did was for profit. At this time, his son was so highly regarded in White Deer College. Not only did he work in the paper mill during the day, but he also gave private lessons at night. One had to know that there were at least 2,000 students on this mountain. However, this President Zhang, Lord Zhang, actually valued his family's Qian Wanli so much. Qian Tong couldn't help but tighten his grip on the wooden box in his hand and sit in the sedan chair. He learned from his son that Zhang Feng didn't lack anything. He didn't like anything. But there was one thing. And that was that he liked to collect all kinds of rare treasures. This made him, who had always wanted to visit Zhang Feng and talk about paper and the braised meat business, unable to find a way to do so. Now that he knew that Zhang Feng was in the tavern, how could Qian Tong sit still? Along the way, even if the sedan bearers ran at full speed, Qian Tong still felt that they were too slow. On the other side, Yuchi Yu-er, who had nothing to do, was in a daze in Yuchi Estate's waterside pavilion when she happened to hear a group of soldiers talking in private. It was related to Zhang Feng. Yuchi Yu-er couldn't help but ask hurriedly, "Little brothers, were you talking about Prince Zhang on Shao Mountain just now?" Those who were able to serve as soldiers in the Yuchi estate were all Yuchi Gong's loyal followers. As for the rumors about Yuchi Yu-er, how could they not know about it? They lowered their heads and didn't dare to look at Yuchi Yu-er. "Miss, someone outside the estate just heard that Prince Zhang returned to the tavern." Hearing this, the sadness on Yuchi Yu-er's face was swept away. She hurriedly lifted the hem of her skirt and was about to run out of the door. Seeing this, the soldiers turned pale with fright and hurriedly stopped Yuchi Yu-er, saying, "Miss, the patriarch ordered." "Your patriarch is my brother. My brother didn't allow me to go up the mountain, but it doesn't mean that I can't go to Chang'an City, right?" When the soldiers heard this, their foreheads were instantly covered in cold sweat. "Miss, we are just following orders. Please, get out of my way." The emperor and the retired emperor have acquiesced. "Who do you think you are? If you dare to stop me again, believe it or not, I will tell my cousin that you bullied me." They couldn't help but panic. Chapter 861. Inside the Tavern. The smell of rubber came from the smelting furnace. The smell made Zhang Feng cough incessantly. In the end, after weighing his own weight, he could only give up. After going out, he turned right and found Niu Pai Huang, who made cowhide. After giving him 3 coins, Niu Pai Huang's mouth, which was full of missing teeth, grinned as if he wanted to swallow Zhang Feng whole. After promising to provide food and wine, Niu Pai Huang happily ran out of the tavern with a pot of smelly black stuff under the envious eyes of the crowd. As for the people at the door, now, Zhang Feng was too lazy to pay attention to them. However, this was not important. After Zhang Feng did this, the women in the crowd instantly burst into a burst of exclamations that belonged only to idiots. They had seen too many. Zhang Feng was naturally too lazy to pay attention to them. He could not be like an idiot every day and be happy with everyone, right? Walking back to the tavern, Zhang Feng lazily lay on the recliner covered with a sheepskin blanket and closed his eyes. However, from time to time, Ma Zhou's mouth would jump out of his mouth, which made Zhang Feng open his eyes again. He glanced at Ma Zhou, who wanted to crawl into the wall. Zhang Feng then asked, "Ma Zhou, come here." Teacher, you rest. I'll take a look again. Previously, I only heard Chang Tiniu and the people of Tonghui Square boasting that your tavern was amazing. Now that I've seen it, I'm very happy. You're happy, but Lao Tzu is miserable. Can you not make weird sounds? Zhang Feng was too lazy to care. Some people, when seeing something, would naturally make some greedy sounds. For example, when a pervert saw a beautiful woman. This was the case. There was no rest. Zhang Feng could only lie on the recliner and close his eyes, carefully thinking about the future development of the academy and his future. At this time, Zhang Feng really couldn't afford to raise the chickens, ducks, and pigs on the mountain. The entire desolate mountain was now filled with the smell of pig dung and chicken and duck dung. Zhang Feng was also doing his best to prevent the locusts from going down the path of starvation. Instead, it allowed them to benefit others in a more glorious way. The beggar's chicken, beggar's duck, and other fresh ways of eating were the last sublimation and sacrifice for these chickens and ducks. At least in the future, no matter how much time had passed, as long as people thought about it, they would be able to remember that these chickens and ducks were the great heroes of eliminating locusts during the second year of Jingguan. This was their final sublimation and glory. As for those pigs, at first, it was because they really couldn't afford to raise it. Who could afford to raise this thing in such a disaster year? But since Jin Zhangfeng invented the braised meat and sent it to Chang'an City, it really became popular for a while, and the reputation of pork was unparalleled. However, Zhang Feng knew that when people got tired of eating and vomited, it would be terrible. After all, in Chang'an City, there were only a limited number of people who could afford to buy and exchange food for meat. Even in all the prefectures, Laoli seemed to have opened branches at this time. However, even so, ordinary people still couldn't afford it. Every day, the braised meat factory on Shao Mountain was still sending food to Chang'an in an orderly manner. Even though the common ingredients were used to help the poor people waiting at the city gate all day long, it didn't help. The sallow and emaciated people were used to living a poor life. However, this sudden meal of meat made many people vomit and have diarrhea. Even so, there was still a touch of happiness and excitement on their dirty faces that could not be concealed. This was simply something they could brag about for the rest of their lives. Today, I still have meat to eat in such a famine year. Do you believe it? And it's free. And Zhang Feng also chose to retire when the braised meat business was flourishing. It was because these things would sooner or later reach their current peak and fall down. Therefore, Zhang Feng hurriedly scattered all the pig beasts today. He couldn't afford to raise them. More importantly, it was better to teach a man to fish than to give him a fish. This was an immutable truth. How could Zhang Feng not know? Fengzi. Someone is coming. So many people are coming. Just when Zhang Feng was thinking about when to make basketball into an industry, a cry of surprise made Zhang Feng jump from the reclining chair. What's the matter? What's the matter? The person who came was the simple and honest son of the old village head. Before Zhang Feng had time to ask, he saw a sedan chair slowly squeezing through the crowd outside the tavern and landing in front of Zhang Feng's tavern. When the crowd saw the sedan chairs, they couldn't help but make way for them. Ma Zhou also gave up the idea of climbing the wall and went to the entrance of the tavern to welcome the guests. After all, he still had this awareness. The first sedan chair looked familiar to Zhang Feng. It seemed to be the sedan chair of the Chang'an County government. As expected, when the sedan chair landed, County Magistrate Niu, who was wearing a green robe and holding a big gift box, happily saluted the surrounding officials and people. When the crowd saw that it was actually the county magistrate, they couldn't help but be even more surprised. The moment they entered the tavern, County Magistrate Niu laughed and said, "Brother Zhang, when I heard that you were back, I immediately rushed over. It seems that you've been living a good life on the mountain recently." Chapter 862. Zhang Feng was also a little surprised. In his memory, this guy was not someone to be trifled with. Why is he here? Zhang Feng calmly made an obeisance and stepped forward, saying, "Lord Niu, what brings you here?" Come. Please come in. Ma Zhou, go and make some tea." Seeing Zhang Feng so polite, Lord Niu was also surprised. He hurriedly bowed and sat down with Zhang Feng. After Zhang Feng sat down, Lord Niu hurriedly handed the gift box in his hand to Zhang Feng and said, "The purchase of land last time was purely a misunderstanding. Brother, Please don't take it to heart. Is it because of this? Zhang Feng suspiciously glanced at the yellow paper box on the table and could not help but feel more confused. There must be a reason for this abnormality. Zhang Feng could not help asking, Lord Niu, what brings you here today? Hearing this, Niu Weili knew that Zhang Feng was a little impatient. He laughed and did not say anything. Instead, he opened the gift box on the table and said while opening it, Brother, I know Prince Zhang is a magnanimous person. We did have a misunderstanding before, but I believe Prince Zhang will not take it to heart. I've been thinking about giving you a gift, but I was too busy and couldn't go to Mount Shao. Seeing you benefiting the people on Mount Shao, I'm very moved. I heard that Prince Zhang likes to collect rare treasures in the world. Coincidentally, some time ago, my relatives in my hometown got a strange thing from a merchant in the western regions. So I brought it here to show you. While speaking, Niu Weili slowly opened the paper box, revealing a few things that looked like lumps of earth. Zhang Feng did not notice it at first. Niu Weili was just a county magistrate of Chang'an. What good things could he have? But after seeing it, Zhang Feng almost stood up and called him a fellow countryman. However, Zhang Feng's rationality still allowed him to forcefully stabilize his expression. After all, this fellow had come to him with this toy. He definitely had something to ask of him. Zhang Feng glanced at the dirt balls without batting an eyelid. He casually picked one up and asked curiously, What is this dirt ball? Niu Weili caught Zhang Feng's attention. He was a little excited. Prince Zhang, I don't know where this thing came from for the time being. I only know that when a merchant from the western regions was selling the specialties of Shiyu, he mixed it with the local specialties. In the end, an angry merchant in Chang'an reported it to me. I learned that Prince Zhang likes to collect such strange things during this period, so I bought this thing. Don't worry, I've already gotten the agreement of the merchants from the western regions and the Tang dynasty to buy this item at the same price. Although Niu Weili did not know Zhang Feng's status, the secret order from his superior that night made Niu Weili dare not treat Zhang Feng as an ordinary person. Besides, Zhang Feng was still a viscount now. Although he had not been formally in theft, the Shao Mountain had been awarded to him. The title of Viscount of Shao Mountain was not far away. Besides, regardless of this identity, the Chancellor and Dean of Chang'an University and White Deer College, as well as the title of a Great Confucian jointly recommended by the 4 great Confucian scholars, was not someone Niu Weili could afford to offend now. Therefore, Niu Weili deliberately emphasized the word buy. Hearing this, Zhang Feng calmly put the dirt ball on the table, lit a cigarette for Niu Weili, and poured a cup of tea for Niu Weili from the teapot brought by Ma Zhou. Then he said, Master Niu, Brother Niu, I've never seen this thing before. I like such a magical thing very much. Here's a bill. Take it as I bought it. Niu Weili was not happy. With a straight face he said angrily, Prince Zhang, are you treating me as an outsider? This thing is not a good thing. I spent 10 coins to buy it. The merchant from the western regions was so happy that he could not even close his mouth. Are you giving me this thing because you want to reward me? Niu Weili did not even look at the bill handed by Zhang Feng and said angrily. Seeing this, Zhang Feng laughed and said, That's good. Thank you so much, brother. What are you thanking me for? Originally, Prince Zhang opened the Chang'an Academy in Chang, and to benefit the people of Chang'an. He also helped the disaster victims in Shao Mountain. If it were not for Prince Zhang, maybe I would not be an official now. The guy on my head would have moved away long ago. After saying this, Niu Weili was about to get up and leave. Zhang Feng hurriedly pulled him to sit down. Since Brother Niu values friendship so much, if I refuse, then I, Zhang Feng, am in the wrong. Since there's no such thing, then I'll accept it. Seeing this, Niu Weili sat down with a smile, smoking and drinking tea. By the way, brother, is there anything else you need this time? If there's anything I can help with, brother, just tell me. I'll definitely do it for you. This was the main point. Niu Weili came to give something for no reason? Zhang Feng would not believe it even if he was beaten to death. Hearing this, Niu Weili sighed with a bitter face. Alas! This is all because I'm not capable. Prince Zhang, you have to help me. Chapter 863. Zhang Feng knew that Niu Weili was up to no good. But looking at the dirt on the table, Zhang Feng suppressed his impatience and said, Brother Niu, don't worry. If there's anything I can help you with, I'll help you. Just tell me. Niu Weili stopped crying when he saw that. After all, he had been holding it in for a long time and did not squeeze out a single tear. Therefore, he decided not to hold back and hurriedly said, Chang'an City was not affected by the previous famine. Now, nothing has been mentioned. The monthly tax task is still on the table. You've seen Chang'an City. Although it's bustling, only a few people can afford it. What's more, once the Shao Mountain market was opened, the number of people in the two big markets in Chang'an City has decreased by more than half. Let's get down to business. Zhang Feng did not want to listen to him and quickly interrupted him. Now, Zhang Feng would get a headache whenever he listened to someone's nagging and stories. There were a few times when old Li's nagging got him into trouble. He was afraid of being tricked. Seeing that, Niu Weili also smacked his lips and said, I heard that Prince Zhang has a paper mill on Shao Mountain? And now, the braised meat all over Chang'an City is also from the food factory on Shao Mountain? Yes. But if you want to use these two to stabilize the market, I advise you to give up. After all, these things are not under my control now. I'll give you an idea. You wait at the city gate. When you see Li Qian and the others, you can discuss it with him. I've entrusted this matter to him. As long as he is willing, I don't mind. Hearing that, Niu Weili's eyes lit up and he said in surprise, So, Prince Zhang has agreed? Zhang Feng nodded. However, let me say this first. I only have 10% of the profits, so the braised meat is still fine. When the time comes, you can discuss it with old He and the rest. If the authorities step in, I will have less manpower and resources to distribute the braised meat. As for the paper mill's white paper business, you still have to talk to Li Qianhan. What I promised is what I promised. As long as you agree, isn't it a done deal? Niu Weili was ecstatic. Ma Zhou, who was standing by the side, could not bear to watch any longer. He frowned slightly and wanted to say something. This was something that even a fool could see. This damned Niu Weili wanted to take advantage of the situation to fish for benefits. Why did Master agree? How was he behaving like a parental official? How was this still the wise and far-sighted Dean? Ma Zhou didn't understand. But it didn't matter. After chatting with Zhang Feng for a while, Niu Weili rubbed his hands and said, It's getting late, so I won't bother you anymore. Another day, I'll treat Prince Zhang to a meal. All right. Zhang Feng nodded and got up to see him off. When he saw Niu Weili off at the door, Zhang Feng asked casually, Brother Niu, if you meet that merchant from the western regions in the future, if he still has this thing, can I trouble you to leave it for me? When Niu Weili heard this, he said with some difficulty, Brother Dissatisfaction, I asked about this matter. The merchant said that he encountered a broken ship at sea, and he picked it up from a broken bag on the ship, so. Zhang Feng was a little disappointed when he heard this. Then, thank you, brother. If you meet this kind of rare thing in the future, you must remember me. Okay. That's all I need to hear. I'll pay more attention in the future. After seeing Niu Weili off, Ma Zhou was a little puzzled and asked, Master, this thing. Sure. I'll tell you later. This is a big treasure. Zhang Feng didn't expect that he could meet this thing so early. The reason why Zhang Feng waited until the end to ask was that all the people who could be county magistrates under the emperor's rule were very powerful. If you didn't give him some benefits, would he be so loyal to you? The western regions. The broken ship. Zhang Feng thought carefully for a long time, but he still couldn't figure out the origin of this thing. However, one thing was certain. This thing was the only one in the Tang dynasty. As for whether there was such a thing outside, Zhang Feng didn't know. If Niu Weili and that merchant from the western regions didn't lie, this thing really didn't exist in other places in this era except for Peru, which was far away on the other side of the ocean. Did this broken ship come from there? Zhang Feng couldn't help but fall into a wild imagination. At this moment, after Niu Weili left, another person with a capable figure, who looked like a merchant wearing a beige robe, walked into the tavern with a smile while carrying a gift box. As soon as he entered, he bowed and said, I presume this young master is the Dean of White Deer College, Prince Zhang, Lord Zhangju. Seeing Zhang Feng holding the lump of mud in a daze, Ma Zhou continued, Master, it is indeed Lord Zhangju. May I know who you are? It's Prince Zhang. This humble one's surname is Qian. Little brother, do you know Qian Wanli? Ma Zhou was stunned. Are you talking about Qian Wanli, young Master Qian? The person who came was Qian Wanli. Seeing that Ma Zhou knew him, he hurriedly said, Yes, that's him. This old man is Qian Wanli's father. Chapter 864. It would have been fine if he hadn't said anything, but now that he did, Qian Tong showed his talent as a businessman. Ma Zhou was so excited that he almost wanted to call Qian Tong a godfather, but it was at this moment that Zhang Feng coughed, waking the two of them up in an instant. Qian Tong was a veteran in the business world, so he looked at Zhang Feng in surprise and hurriedly said, Old Qian Tong greets Prince Zhang. I didn't expect Master Qian to be the father of that little brat Qian Wanli. I have long heard that Qian Wanli's father is an extraordinary figure in Chang'an. It seems that you really are as good as the rumors say. Please sit down, Ma Zhou will serve tea. In fact, Zhang Feng had already woken up. However, with so many people coming to visit him one after another, Zhang Feng realized something. He wasn't a gentleman, nor was he a bad person, but Zhang Feng was really annoyed. However, since this guy was Qian Wanli's father who owned a bank and was famous for being stingy, Zhang Feng was still a little interested. He was interested in the gift box he had placed on the table. Qian Tong sat down, and after exchanging some pleasantries with Zhang Feng, he said, Right, after talking for so long, I almost forgot about some important matters. Qian Tong patted his forehead, hurriedly got up, carefully opened the box, and then took out a long wooden box, placing it in front of Zhang Feng and saying, This old man's eyes are not good enough to say what it is, but last time, I heard from my Wan Li and the people on Shao Mountain that you like to collect these strange things, so... Qian Tong glanced at Zhang Feng before hurriedly opening the wooden box. Qian Tong was acting mysteriously. This attracted Ma Zhou's attention, stretching his neck and staring at the wooden box in Qian Tong's hand. Zhang Feng's interest was piqued. Niu Weili had given Zhang Feng a big treasure. He didn't expect that right after he left, the manager of the bank would give him another gift. Zhang Feng was looking forward to seeing how sharp the eyes of the manager of the bank were. Under Zhang Feng's gaze, Qian Tong slowly opened the long wooden box and saw a black object lying inside. Regarding this, Zhang Feng was also somewhat curious. He could not help but ask in surprise, Master Qian, what is this thing? Qian Tong smiled. Just now, he had arrived at the same time as Niu Weili, and had even arrived a bit earlier than Niu Weili, but the other party was the county lord, so he could only stand aside. Now that he saw Zhang Feng's expression, even the dirt clump Niu Weili had offered him didn't cause such an expression. Qian Tong couldn't help feeling even more excited. Prince Zhang may not know, but this thing is a gift from the heavens. Although it looks like a stick to you now, you should consider it carefully. As he spoke, Qian Tong took out the object from the wooden box and placed it in Zhang Feng's hand. A meteorite. Zhang Feng instantly thought of something. But this thing. Zhang Feng couldn't guarantee anything, especially such a long one. In his knowledge, meteorites generally contained radiation or radioactive elements, but those things generally had a relatively bright color. However, this thing was like a piece of burnt iron smeared with black paint. At first glance, there was nothing special about it. However, this thing was already in his hands. Zhang Feng instantly felt that it was extraordinary. Heavy. Very heavy. This thing was only as thick as a thumb and as long as a chopstick, but at this time, when it was placed in Zhang Feng's hand, Zhang Feng suddenly felt like he couldn't lift it. Weighing it in his hand, it weighed at least 20 kilograms. Zhang Feng couldn't help but be a little shocked. Generally, the greater the physical mass, the heavier it would be. However, Zhang Feng didn't feel that this thing in his hand had any other function except for its weight. Master Qian, where did you get this thing? Speaking of this treasure, Qian Tong became interested. Prince Zhang, you don't know. When I was 10 years old last year, a man came to my bank and wanted to pawn this thing. At that time, I didn't know what this thing was. Finally, I found a person in Chang'an City who knew about this thing to have a look, but that person didn't know either. Finally, I found many forging workshops and even used my connections to bring it to the Ministry of Works, but there was no clue. So it has been in my treasure room. Today, I learned that Prince Zhang has returned to the city, so I came to present this treasure. Sir, you are experienced and knowledgeable, so I hope you can give me a look. This time, Zhang Feng was asked the right question. Needless to say, He didn't know what this thing was. At this time, he couldn't help but think of the pharaoh's dagger. The dagger was also made of meteorite. Zhang Feng couldn't help but have an impulse to go to the pyramid to explore the tomb right now. However, this was just a random thought. If he really wanted to go, he really didn't dare to go. At this time, it was simply courting death. Then, Zhang Feng put the meteorite on the table and said, I don't know what this thing is for the time being, but if I can figure it out in the future, how about I inform you immediately? Hey, you flatter me. This was originally a gift for Prince Zhang to thank Prince Zhang for his cultivation of Wanli. If you like it, then keep it. Chapter 865. When Zhang Feng saw this, he couldn't understand. No, how can I accept this? This is an incredible treasure. I can't accept it. Besides, teaching and educating people is what I should do. How can I let Master Qian spend money on this? Zhang Feng patted the meteorite and said with certainty. No, this thing belongs to the virtuous. Although this old man is a businessman, I have always admired people like you. In addition, my son is in the academy, and Prince Zhang thinks so highly of him. This old man feels that this gift is a bit shameful. What are you saying? AI. Since Master Qian is so straightforward, then this little one will be disrespectful. Ma Zhou's horizons had been broadened today. This was simply more exciting than anything else. The conversation between a profiteer and a dean had simply opened a new door for him. At this moment, Ma Zhou looked outside the door. He didn't know when, but the curtain of a palanquin slowly opened, and a fairy-like woman appeared at the door. It was also because of this woman's appearance that the originally noisy outside the door instantly became silent. At this moment, Ma Zhou was also a little stunned. Which family was this woman from? How could she be so seductive? At this time, Zhang Feng and Qian Tong also noticed the person outside the door. Qian Tong was worthy of being called a wily old fox. His eyes rolling for a moment before he quickly got up and said, After chatting with young Master Zhang, this old man has completely forgotten about the important matter. Young Master Zhang, let's meet again another day. This old man will take his leave first. While speaking, Qian Tong hurriedly left. Seeing this, Zhang Feng smacked his lips and didn't say anything. He looked at the graceful Yu Qi standing at the door and said with a chuckle, I didn't expect Miss Yu to grace my humble abode with your presence. You really bring light to my humble abode. Please come in. Yu Qi pursed her lips and smiled. I didn't expect to disturb Prince Zhang's mood. I hope Prince Zhang won't take offense. Haha, of course not. After the two chatted for a while, Zhang Feng asked, By the way, how did you find this place? It's all because Prince Zhang's reputation is too great. This little girl heard about the news of Prince Zhang leaving the mountain at home, so she had nothing to do and wanted to come to your little tavern to take a look. Hey! However, hearing this, Zhang Feng asked, But what? Yu Qi looked around and smiled sweetly. Do you know how many talented girls have been charmed by your little tavern? Well, I don't know. However, if they like, they can come to Chang'an. I will definitely welcome them. Ma Zhou always felt that he was an extra. After standing there for a while, he felt his scalp go numb from the conversation between the two of them. He couldn't help but sneak out of the tavern and close the door behind him. Only then did Ma Zhou's heart begin to beat rapidly. It was too king exciting. If he stayed any longer, Ma Zhou couldn't guarantee that he would be able to walk out of the tavern alive. Whether it was the conversation between Zhang Feng and Niu Weili, or with Qian Tong, or with this girl, these three conversations seemed to have opened a new door for Ma Zhou. In these three conversations, Zhang Feng changed his tone 3 times. But what puzzled him the most and made him feel the most depressed and frightened was the conversation with this girl named Yu. She was obviously a stunning woman, and Zhang Feng was approachable. Although the two were laughing and chatting, he felt that it was more tiring than a real fight. This was simply worse than shit. When the people outside the tavern saw the girl enter the tavern, although they were a little surprised, they tactfully left. After all, everyone knew. At this time, Zhang Feng definitely wouldn't pay attention to them. However, Zhang Feng and Yu Qi were just chatting casually. After a while, Yu Qi gently rested her chin on her jade-like hand and quietly looked at Zhang Feng. Seeing this, Zhang Feng felt a little uncomfortable. Miss Yu, why are you looking at me like this? Is there something dirty on my face? Yuchi-Yu smiled faintly. No, but this little girl remembers that when we were on the mountain, Prince Zhang seemed to have said that when we meet again, he would recite poems with me. When Zhang Feng heard this, he felt like his head was about to explode. Aren't I busy? After the sky changes, this little one will definitely invite Miss Yu to recite poems with me. How about it? Yuchi-Yu pursed her lips and smiled. Then I'll wait for the good news. As she spoke, Yuchi-Yu stood up lazily. She didn't know if it was on purpose or not, but when she stood up, she staggered and fell into Zhang Feng's arms. Zhang Feng didn't expect Yuchi-Yu to do this. In a panic, he instinctively reached out and Yuchi-Yu appeared in his arms in an instant. Yuchi-Yu's proud and beautiful face was deeply buried in Zhang Feng's arms. In an instant, that proud place almost suffocated Zhang Feng to death. Feeling the plump and supple skin on his fingertips, Zhang Feng's heart couldn't help but beat rapidly. Seductress. She was simply a seductress. Chapter 866. In an instant, Zhang Feng's face turned as red as blood. Yuchi-Yu hugged Zhang Feng as if she'd lost her head out of fear, causing him to suck in a breath of cold air. Cough, cough, cough. As Zhang Feng coughed violently, Yuchi-Yu let go of Zhang Feng in a panic. This. Prince Zhang. My daughter didn't do it on purpose. I hope Prince Zhang. Yuchi-Yu looked at Zhang Feng like a child who had done something wrong. Zhang Feng's head buzzed as if it was about to explode. This was what he couldn't stand the most. He especially didn't dare to look into Yuchi-Yu's eyes. Now that they had inadvertently met each other's eyes, Zhang Feng's face turned even redder. Cough, cough, cough. It's fine, I'm fine. Damn the floor. When I have time, I'll definitely get the craftsman on the mountain to repave the floor. Yes, it's the floor's fault. Zhang Fengdong said one sentence after another. There was no trace of the wisdom he had before. As he spoke, Yuchi-Yu finally realized what they were doing. She panicked and stood up from Zhang Feng's lap. For the first time, a trace of panic appeared in Yuchi-Yu's seductive eyes. After the two of them hurriedly tidied up their clothes, they acted as if nothing had happened and drank tea with all their might. After a long while, Yuchi-Yu stole a glance at Zhang Feng. Seeing that he was playing with his hair, she asked, Prince Zhang, can you ask you something? Go ahead. After Yu went down the mountain, Prince Zhang composed that poem. Was it because of you that you felt lost? This. Zhang Feng's mouth was dry. His mind was still in a mess. He was still thinking about what had just happened. When he heard Yuchi-Yu's question, he didn't know what to say. He had only casually composed the poem last time. If it weren't for those three bastards, this wouldn't have happened. Yuchi-Yu clearly misunderstood something. However, how could Zhang Feng explain this? There was simply no way to explain it. The more he tried to explain, the more he couldn't make sense of it. Zhang Feng coughed and said, Miss Yu, a poem's ability lies in its meaning. Why do you have to pursue it? Who are you doing it for? Zhang Feng's words. Yuchi-Yu smiled faintly. Seeing Zhang Feng's hand on the teacup, she placed her hand on Zhang Feng's hand and said in an aggrieved tone, Young Master Zhang, can you compose a poem for me? This. The moment Yuchi-Yu's hand, Yu's hand. What was he supposed to say? Isn't this King asking for my life? Weren't you afraid that he wouldn't be able to control himself? Damn you, old you. You're already so old. Lao Tzu has no enmity with you. You don't have to use this seductress to harm me, right? If you're still holding a grudge over how I tricked you, Lao Tzu will return it to you, okay? Zhang Feng couldn't take it anymore. He couldn't guarantee what would happen if he continued to stay here. This woman was simply more powerful than anything else. Ahem. Well, Miss Yu, you know that poems? Yuchi-Yu thought that Zhang Feng was going to compose a poem. Her face lit up. I've long heard that Prince Zhang is eloquent and can compose poems easily. Could it be that Prince Zhang has thought of it so quickly? As she spoke, Yuchi-Yu put her face in front of Zhang Feng again. Zhang Feng groaned inwardly. He twisted his numb neck and drank all the water in the cup and the teapot in one gulp. Then he said, thinking of clothes in the clouds and face in the flowers, the spring breeze brushes the railings and the dew is thick. If not for the mountains and jade heads, We would meet under the moon in the Jade Pavilion. At this moment, Zhang Feng just wanted to finish his task as soon as possible. When the poem was finished, Zhang Feng hurriedly got up. Suppressing his emotions, he said, "Miss Yu, I still have important matters to attend to." "Ah, Prince Zhang, this is." Yuchi Yu pretended to be surprised. The next moment, she saw that Zhang Feng's expression was abnormally ugly. She covered her mouth and laughed. "In that case, Yu will come to visit another day. Thank you, Prince Zhang, for your poem today. Yu will definitely give you a big gift another day." As she spoke, Yuchi Yu leisurely got up. After giving a courtly greeting, she slowly left. Only after Yuchi Yu left did Zhang Feng's taut nerves instantly relax. He hurriedly ran to the rear courtyard and dove headfirst into the water tank, not caring whether or not the water in the tank had been used for a long time or whether or not there were insects inside. To sober himself up. At this moment, Ma Zhou waited for Yuchi Yu to leave before entering the small tavern. As soon as he heard the noise in the backyard, he turned pale with fright and hurriedly ran into the backyard. "Teacher, how did Zhang Feng become like this when he just went out for a while?" Ma Zhou could not help but pull Zhang Feng out of the water tank in a panic. With the cool water, Zhang Feng became much more clear-headed and the evil fire in his heart subsided. Squatting beside the water tank and panting, he signaled Ma Zhou to give him a cigarette. After taking 2 puffs with trembling hands, Zhang Feng asked, "You left?" "She left." "She really left?" "Yes, I saw her get into the sedan chair and leave." Hearing this, Zhang Feng heaved a deep sigh of relief. Then he cursed. "Lao Tzu asked you to come here to broaden your horizons. Mother ***, in the end, you just left Lao Tzu here alone?" Chapter 867. Ma Zhou was dumbfounded. He turned pale with fright and stuttered at a loss. "Teacher, the ancient said this. Don't give me this. Let me ask you, did you really not understand or were you faking it? Didn't you see that I was flattering you? If you felt uncomfortable and ran away, why didn't you call me along? How can you trick your teacher like this?" Ma Zhou felt wronged. However, he didn't know what to do and was sweating profusely from anxiety. When Zhang Feng saw this, he couldn't reprimand him. After all, this woman was too powerful. How could an honest person like Ma Zhou have seen this before? All right, I don't blame you for this. After all, no one has seen this kind of woman before. However, I brought you out to broaden your horizons. Tonight, I want you to write down what you've learned today. Also, I want you to copy the disciple rules 10 times. When Ma Zhou heard this, he could only bow and say, "Yes." "All right, you can go up the mountain. Also, tell them that I have something important to do here." Zhang Feng waved his hand tiredly and sent Ma Zhou away. However, before Ma Zhou could walk out of the backyard, he saw Yuchi Gong and Chang Yaojin walking into the tavern with 2 beggars' chickens. When he saw Yuchi Gong, Zhang Feng was so angry that his whole body trembled. After waving his hand to let Ma Zhou go up the mountain, Zhang Feng walked into the tavern angrily. Yuchi Gong and Cheng Yaojin were stunned. "Yo, what's going on? Who bullied you?" Yuchi Gong couldn't help but ask in surprise. "You still have the nerve to ask? Lao Tzu has no grudge with you. Why did you make fun of him?" Yuchi Gong was stunned when he heard this. He hurriedly punched the beggar's chicken away and asked, "What happened? What does this have to do with me again?" "Don't worry, if that bastard dares to bully you and frame me, Lao Tzu will bring him here now. You can kill him or cut him up as you wish." Cheng Yaojin also felt that something was wrong. They were training the soldiers at the foot of the mountain. When they heard that Zhang Feng had gone down the mountain, the 2 of them waited for the training to end before rushing over. They wanted to have a drink with Zhang Feng. While he was at it, he would also clarify the matter with Yuchi Yu. But now, seeing Zhang Feng's appearance, Chang Yaojin and Wang Chong instantly felt that something big had happened. As expected, as soon as Cheng Yaojin finished speaking, Zhang Feng pursed his lips and said, "Are you sure you don't know?" Chang Yaojin spread out his hands and said, "We just finished our work. When we heard that you went down the mountain, we hurriedly ran over to have a drink with you. How would we know what was wrong with you?" When Zhang Feng heard this, his mood improved a little. He snorted and said, "Just now his sister came. Gong's expression changed upon hearing this. He had come this time to resolve this matter. Yuer told the truth. Gong had always been fighting outside, so he had never met her. He had only exchanged letters with that cousin of his, and had occasionally heard him mention that he had a girl. Back when he was drinking with Zhang Feng, he blurted it out without thinking. When he returned home, he told his family. The more the two of them thought about it in bed, the more they felt that there was something going on between the two of them. Gong's wife had always been in charge of the household, so she naturally knew more about Yuer than Gong. She only said that Yuer was a rare beauty in the Yuchi family and was famous in the Jiangnan area. The two of them looked at Zhang Feng. He was still single and brimming with talent. If the two of them got together, they would be a perfect match. Although Yuer might be the concubine, for someone like Zhang Feng, whose future was unknown, such a thing was negligible. Which successful man did not have 3 wives and 4 concubines? Besides, given Zhang Feng's relationship with the emperor and the crown prince, he had a bright future ahead of him. However, when the two of them met, it seemed to be completely different from what they had imagined. First, it was Zhang Feng's poem on the mountain. Then, it was the emperor and the retired emperor's anger. Then, the retired emperor's words after meeting Yuer. Gong could not help but be cautious. After that, Gong hurriedly dispatched the best men under his command to investigate the imperial chef Yuer from various states in Jiangnan. It was also on this day. Right when they came out of the drill ground of Mount Shao, a scout finally came back with a letter that was delivered from a family 800 miles away from each state capital. His face was covered in dust. Yuer was extremely beautiful. But at home and in Jiangnan, she was also the center of attention. She had been extremely arrogant since she was young. Most importantly, she was very ambitious and good at playing with people's hearts. After reading the letter, Gong was really anxious. He finally understood why the retired emperor said that. He also finally understood why Zhang Feng was so anxious. However, it was not his place to interfere in this matter. As long as things did not develop in the worst direction, it would be best if Zhang Feng could change Yuer's mind with his wicked ideas. However, Gong was still a step too late. Gong's expression was slightly serious as he said, "Zhang Feng, I'm going to ask you a serious question now. Answer me honestly. Do you like Yuer?" Chapter 868. Zhang Feng's expression turned serious when he heard that. To be honest, Zhang Feng was infatuated with Yuer, or even though he was in a sorry state after meeting her twice. Who didn't love beauties? Everyone did. To be fair, Zhang Feng wasn't a villain or a gentleman. He liked beauties too, but Yuer always gave him a feeling that he couldn't see through her. He even felt a sense of danger. But humans were just that cheap. Even though he knew there was a problem, Zhang Feng was looking forward to this kind of challenge. Especially the moment he came into contact with Yuer, Zhang Feng was a little infatuated with the feeling of suffocation. Perhaps it was also a desire to conquer. At this time, Zhang Feng also knew that if Zhang Feng said no, then Lao Yu might use some means to send Yu back to Jiangnan, or find a second-generation official to marry her. It was all because of Zhang Feng's words. Zhang Feng thought for a long time, but Gong wasn't in a hurry. He picked up Zhang Feng's cigarette from the table, scratched the wick of the oil lamp, lit it, and smoked slowly. Well, to be honest, I don't like her. From a man's point of view, Yuer is indeed. But she's a little scheming. I still can't see through her. So if you say you don't like her, you'll be lying. Do you understand what I mean, old you? Zhang Feng said after weighing the pros and cons for a long time. Gong grinned and said, "If that's the case, I won't interfere in this matter. Besides, I can't interfere even if I want to. I can only give you a piece of advice. Yuer has been arrogant since she was a child, and she's been spoiled, so I won't force you to be together in the future. I just don't want to fall to the point where we can't even be brothers in the end." Gong had seen too many things like this. He couldn't help but feel a little bitter when he talked about it. Although Zhang Feng hadn't known him for long, he was someone who couldn't hide things. As for him and Yuer, it was easy to cause a commotion in the city. The storm that Gong was talking about was that he was afraid that Yuer would mess around with Zhang Feng's things. In the end, the Emperor Emeritus and the Emperor Emeritus would not be able to tolerate it. Although the Emperor Emeritus and the Emperor Emeritus might not necessarily make a move against Zhang Feng, if this brat's feelings were too deep, then, once the Emperor and the retired Emperor made a move against Yuchi, it would be truly terrifying if he went crazy. Perhaps this was what the Emperor and retired Emperor meant when they talked about it that day? Yuchi Gong couldn't help but sigh again and say, "Come on, let's not talk about this anymore. Let's take it one step at a time. I know you haven't eaten yet, so why don't we have a drink?" Zhang Feng didn't want to dwell on this matter. Old Yu was a smart man, so he naturally knew what to do. Old Yu changed the topic. Zhang Feng also instantly felt hungry. "If you didn't mention it, I would really be hungry. Wait a minute, I'll go to the kitchen to take a look. I think I still have some dry food. Let's have a good drink later." It was said that Zhang Feng still had some private goods. Chang Yaojin couldn't help but grumble. "Boy, how many things have you hidden? How can you hide them so well?" Zhang Feng smiled mischievously, ignored the two of them, and went into the kitchen. Zhang Feng hadn't been back for a long time, so he didn't know whether the things he kept had been taken by the army of rats. But fortunately, what Zhang Feng was worried about didn't happen. The jar was still firmly upside down in the basin, and the dried tiger meat hidden in it should be uneaten. While Zhang Feng was tinkering in the kitchen, Chang Yaojin and Yuchi Gong looked at the beer in their hands and smelled the fragrance coming from Zhang Feng's kitchen. In an instant, the beggar's chicken in their hands suddenly didn't smell good. "Guess, is there any good wine in Fengzi's tavern?" Chang Yaojin whispered in Yuchi Gong's ear. Yuchi Gong's eyes lit up in an instant. "Let's go and have a look." Both of them were drunkards. Zhang Feng said that there was no wine. It was fine on the mountain, but where was it? This was a small tavern. How could there be no wine here? The two of them rummaged from the wine cabinet to the backyard for a long time, but in the end, they still couldn't find any wine. They had to go back to the hall gloomily, looking everywhere with their 4 eyes. From the roof beam to the kitchen. At this moment, Zhang Feng came out. Looking at the strange eyes of the two of them, he couldn't help but ask curiously, "What are you looking at?" Ahem. The two of them coughed and pretended that nothing had happened. When the 3 meat dishes and a few vegetable dishes were served, their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Looking at the golden marinated jerky, he asked, "Is this the good thing you said?" The jerky was cut into small pieces by Zhang Feng. Then, he dried the leftover rice crust and placed it on top of the jerky. He sprinkled a handful of pepper and cumin on it, and added a spoonful of hot oil. That taste. It would be strange if the two of them could stand it. When Zhang Feng was about to put all the dishes on the table, Chang Yaojin pulled him and said, "Fengzi, you have good dishes, but this beer, isn't it a bit too bad?" Zhang Feng stared and pointed to a bucket of swill in the corner. "There is no white wine, but there is some swill. Do you want to drink it?" Chapter 869. You only know how to drink. Why didn't you drink alcohol before? Zhang Feng was also annoyed by Yuchi Yuer's matter. Now that he said that, he felt that he had gone overboard. Fortunately, Chang Yaojin and Yuchi Gong were both shameless people. Zhang Feng was like a younger brother to them. Seeing that Zhang Feng didn't have any white wine, the two didn't say anything. They glanced at Zhang Feng and started to eat. This made Zhang Feng feel that he was being petty. Zhang Feng couldn't help but feel a little awkward. At this moment, Chang Yaojin asked as he tore a piece of jerky, "I heard from Iron Bull that you're preparing to take over the mid-autumn hunt? How's the preparation going now? Excluding today, there are only 10 days left. Do you want Old Man to find a Kuju team for you?" When it came to serious matters, Zhang Feng couldn't help but look serious. "Forget about the Kuju team. Even if I look for one now, I won't be able to find one." Hearing this, Yuchi Gong and Chang Yaojin looked at each other and said, "Don't tell me you're planning to form a Kuju team yourself in these 10 days. The two of them had never heard of this from Chang Chumo and the others. However, he dared to form a Kuju team when he didn't know anything about it? Moreover, it was within 10 days. No matter how they looked at it, it was impossible. However, since this kid said so, it meant that he was prepared. Although this mid-autumn hunt didn't seem to be a big deal, it was obvious that the Imperial College was targeting Chang and University and Zhangfeng's White Deer College. Who asked Zhang Feng to be in the limelight during this period of time? If Zhang Feng didn't come out on top during the mid-autumn hunt, then... If Zhang Feng's academy failed in the 3 autumn hunts after 3 years of imperial examinations, then, in that case, he wouldn't have to participate in the imperial examinations. This mid-autumn hunt was equivalent to the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Rites inspecting the situation of the academy in advance for the emperor. If you can't even handle a small mid-autumn hunt, how can you get a chicken? He might as well not participate in the imperial examinations. How embarrassing. In other words, it was a kind of resource deviation of the country to the academy. The Imperial College had been established for a long time, and it was built by the people of the imperial court. Naturally, it had a close relationship with the people from the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Rites. Originally, the matter of the mid-autumn hunt should have been notified long ago. But this year's situation was special. Because of the locust plague and the food shortage on Mount Hua, many things were put on hold. Even the imperial examinations had been suspended. No one had thought that the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Rites would suddenly make an announcement at this time. No one knew what the emperor was thinking. Did he really believe that Zhang Feng could resolve this matter? Or was he deliberately trying to make Zhang Feng stand up? Preparing for the mid-autumn poetry meet? Although Chang Yaojin and Yu Qigong had unique talents in military affairs, they were not good in this aspect. They only knew that someone was targeting Zhang Feng. But they did not know the details. At this time, seeing Zhang Feng like this, they could not help but think that Zhang Feng was angry just now because of this matter. Yu Qigong and Cheng Yaojin nodded and said, "I thought it was something else." "So this is what you are worried about? You can leave this matter to me. I have been training with the training manual you gave me last time. I have a group of good people under me. If you trust me, you can take this recruit training manual to participate in the mid-autumn hunt. It will definitely open the eyes of those idiots from the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Rites." Yes, old Yu is right. I think this matter will work." The two of them echoed each other. Zhang Feng curled his lips and said, "Just put your hearts in your stomachs. You don't have to worry about this matter." When the two heard this, their eyes lit up and they asked in unison, "Did you prepare something good?" "What do you mean something good?" Zhang Feng rolled his eyes at the two of them. He seriously suspected that the two of them were preparing to scam him again. However, seeing that the two of them were so concerned about this matter, Zhang Feng couldn't help but think of a plan. He smiled and asked, "The two of you are really concerned about this little brother. This little brother has indeed prepared something good. But right now, I'm lacking manpower. Would the two of you like to help this little brother?" This time, it was Yu Qigong and Yu Qigong's turn to be shocked. Zhang Feng smiled. Especially when he smiled so cheekily, he was definitely up to something. The two of them were smart people. How could they not know? After looking at each other, the two of them immediately asked with vigilance, "Tell us about it first." "We will think about it." Where could he find free labor that didn't cost him anything? Didn't they take the initiative to come to their door? Zhang Feng rubbed his hands and said, Hey, don't feel pressured. It's not difficult to do. I just need to trouble the two of you to help me find some carpenters and blacksmiths. As for the rest, I just need to send some cement from my Xingshan Academy. As for the rest, you just need to make a floor as big as my tavern and put 2 backboards on the trees on both sides of the floor. If the two of you are too lazy to go to Xingshan Academy, you can also pave the floor with stone slabs. Yu Qigong and Yu Qigong's faces were full of question marks. What kind of operation was this? They could not help but ask suspiciously, "Just this?" Chapter 870. Yu Qigong and Li Yongjin thought for a while and felt that something was wrong. It was too simple. This is so simple that it couldn't be any simpler. But why did you make this? They didn't know about cement. But they had been to Mount Shao. The market at the foot of Mount Shao was made of that stuff. The two of them had been itching to take some home. A little bit of mud-like stuff was poured on the ground, and after a while, it became like a stone? This was simply too amazing. At this time, seeing that Zhang Feng actually wanted them to go to the mountain to transport cement, the two of them couldn't help but quickly fiddle with their little abacus in their hearts. This was simply a heaven-sent opportunity. If they could seize this opportunity. Okay. What a coincidence. We really have nothing to do during this time. Just tell us, where can we get this stuff you mentioned? We'll go back and find someone to get it now. Yuchi Gong slammed the table, shaking the dishes on the table. Zhang Feng was also shocked. What's wrong with you? Sit down, don't be agitated. I suspect that I didn't explain this to you clearly. You two listen carefully. Zhang Feng seriously suspected that what he said was distorted by the two of them. This thing, I call it a basketball court. I know, isn't it the thing you prepared for this mid-autumn hunt? Chang Yaojin interrupted Zhang Feng, but it seemed that he really hadn't heard of the word basketball. He hurriedly asked, what is a basketball? Basketball is a fun thing that I invented. Zhang Feng didn't know how to explain it. There was no way to explain this thing at all. In this era, there was only kuju, which they couldn't understand. After rubbing his forehead, Zhang Feng said, it's hard to explain it clearly. You two go and do what I said first. When the ball is done tomorrow, I'll tell you what it is. I really can't tell you now. How about it? Yuchi Gong and Cheng Yaojin weren't happy. Hey, what's wrong? You still want to hide it from us? You brat, you're not being honest. It's not about being honest or not. If I tell you right now, he's just a ball. Will you believe me? Besides, the ball will only be fixed tomorrow. What do you want me to do? Seeing this, the two of them reluctantly shut their mouths. Well, let's have a drink. By the way, Fengzi, where do you plan to put this ball court thing? Get it? Zhang Feng couldn't help but be stunned. At this time, if he wanted to promote basketball, especially before the autumn hunt, and let the people accept this thing, he could only do it to the extent that every community and every market had a basketball court, just like in the future. In that case, once it attracted the enthusiasm of the people for basketball, it would naturally be recognized by the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Rights during the mid-autumn hunt. At that time, there would be 5 people that he had personally trained. Then, Zhang Feng could not help but have a crazy plan in his mind. Old Chen, I have something that you guys need to think about for me. If you think it's feasible, you guys have a lot of people under you. Go and do it for me today. Is that okay? Cheng Yaojin and Yuchi Gong narrowed their eyes. Seeing that Zhang Feng didn't look like he was joking, they couldn't help but stop joking. They went forward and asked, tell us about it. There is, but how to do it depends on how you guys do it. Old Chin, do you still remember the promotion of the cooperative and the bone-strengthening powder? Cheng Yaojin and Yuchi Gong's eyes lit up when they heard this. However, Cheng Yaojin was speechless. He asked, then tell me, what is this ball-watching thing? You're saying it out of the blue. This. Zhang Feng patted Cheng Yaojin's shoulder and snapped his fingers. You have to listen carefully. You all know about kuju, right? Yes, we know. Not only do we know, but we also play together when we have nothing to do. That's right. Zhang Feng breathed a sigh of relief. As long as they had played with this thing, it would be easy to handle. This thing is actually the same as kuju. However, kuju is played with the feet, while this basketball is played with the hands. There is a frame about the size of a wash basin more than 10 feet above the ground. There is one on each side of the court. There is no need to explain this, right? The two nodded. They stared at Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng continued, as long as the ball is thrown into the frame, it counts as winning the game. This thing is not like kuju, which is used for fighting. This thing is completely invented by me to strengthen the body. It's not as good as old Master Li. As soon as they heard Zhang Feng mention the retired emperor, the two immediately sat up straight. Although Zhang Feng was a little surprised, he didn't care and said, you have seen old Master Li's body. However, if old Master Li played it every day, his physical fitness would definitely be better than now. Is this thing really so magical? Yuchi Gong and Cheng Yaojin couldn't help but think of the poker cards that Zhang Feng had invented before. When Zhang Feng had made that thing, he had said that it was a good thing. Yes, it was a good thing, but it was too damn expensive. Now, not only were all the gambling houses using poker cards, but even the military and the women at home were playing it when they had nothing to do. In a short period of time, the two's money had shrunk. It was still okay in the military. If you shouted, no one would dare to play. However, if you dared to shout at home, you could try it. You couldn't even enter the door at night. Chapter 871. Although the women in his family quarreled with each other for a few copper coins every day because of this toy, if he dared to stop them from playing with it, he would not be able to enter the room for half a month. This was even more cruel than the scourge of wild beasts. At this moment, seeing that Zhang Feng was about to come up with something, the two of them could not help but be alarmed. Fengzi, this thing you're talking about, is it really for strengthening the body? Nothing else? They were really scared. If it were not for the fact that this thing was made by Zhang Feng, and if it were made by someone else, the emperor would have chopped the person who invented the poker card into pieces. Why would he wait until now? Basically, the concubines in the harem were playing this thing all day long. Although they were not as competitive, it was still a headache for Li Shimin. Zhang Feng knew better than anyone about the poker card, but he had no choice. He was not good at chess, and under old Master Li's pressure, how could he withstand it? He had no choice but to come up with something like this to fend off old Master Li's attacks. He didn't allow this thing to spread out. However, at this moment, it was useless to say all this. Although Zhang Feng knew what Chang Yaojin and Yu Qigong were thinking, Zhang Feng really had to instill some knowledge into them about basketball. Otherwise, they would be too naive. Cough, cough. This basketball is actually something that my respected teacher told me about when we were at Phoenix Ridge. He said that this thing can not only strengthen the body, relax the muscles and circulate the meridians, but it can also prolong life. Yes. Hearing that, Yu Qigong and Cheng Yaojin were instantly energized. Are you sure? The two of them asked almost at the same time. Zhang Feng saw that the two of them were on the same page, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Of course. This thing, guess how old my teacher is this year? Hearing this, Chang Yaojin and Yu Qigong were shocked. Although they were also very curious about who Zhang Feng's master was, to be able to teach him so many magical things, they were still very curious. Now that they saw that Zhang Feng was going to talk about his master, they couldn't help but sit down on Zhang Feng's bench. They didn't even bother to drink their wine. This time, it was Zhang Feng's turn to explode. It was because of the fleas on Yu Qigong and Cheng Yaojin. It could be seen with the naked eye. How could Zhang Feng dare to sit between the two of them? Moreover, Zhang Feng seriously suspected that the two of them had some special fetishes. Zhang Feng hurriedly jumped up and sat on the other side. Hey, 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 don't be like this. I'll say it, okay? Don't be rough. A gentleman uses his mouth, not his fists. Yu Qigong and Cheng Yaojin looked at each other and couldn't help but smile. So this kid was actually into this. Yu Qigong couldn't help but light one of Zhang Feng's cigarettes. He took a puff and said, "Then tell us what's the deal with this thing. Also, Lao Li has always been very interested in your master's matters. If you tell us today, Lao Li might be happy and you won't have to pay a single cent for this." Zhang Feng didn't care about this little bit of money. It didn't cost much anyway. Most importantly, I've already given you the job. Why would I give you money? You're thinking too much. However, Zhang Feng couldn't say anything. These two were much dumber than Lao Li and the others. If only Lao Li and the others were here, how good would that be? At least he wouldn't have to waste so much saliva. This matter started from the winter of 2 years ago. You all know about Phoenix Ridge, right? It's a little bit below Yangping Pass. Yu Qigong and Chang Yaojin nodded. Not only had they been there, but they also knew that it was Zhang Feng's hometown. Zhang Feng continued, "At that time, I was still a stubborn person, like Chen Tinyu. But that day, when I went to the mountain to pick wild mushrooms with my friends from the village, I met an old man. Even if I don't tell you, you should be able to guess. That's right, that old man was my master. When he saw me, he hugged me and climbed up the cliff with his bare hands from the mountain stream." Poor Chang Yaojin and Yu Qigong didn't know that they had been led astray by Zhang Feng. The two listened and sucked in a breath of cold air. And then, that's AF** King Immortal. I know the area around Yangping Pass. The mountains are steep and dense with forests. There are many wild animals. 2 years ago, with your physique, you would have weighed at least 100 pounds. This hometown. Cough cough. How did the old Mr. climb it with his bare hands? Hurry up and tell me. Zhang Feng didn't even think and directly told them the story of the meeting between Ling Huchong and Feng Qingyang in the movie The Proud Journey to the West. Although I don't know how old my master is, he should be at least 70 or 80 years old. But on that steep mountain wall, it was as if he had suction cups on his hands. When he clasped the wall, he jumped more than 100 feet high. Hiss! F***ck. Is he still human? A 70 or 80-year-old old man carrying a kid. Is he an immortal? F***ck. Chapter 872. Zhang Feng saw that the two of them were very smart. They didn't have to work as hard as Yu Shernan and the others. If Yu Shernan and the others heard it, they would ask about it according to the things in the books. But these two wouldn't. Because what Zhang Feng didn't know was that these two guys were generals. They had heard a lot of rumors about this kind of thing, but they used to think that it must be fake. But at this time, they listened very seriously. There was no other way. If they didn't believe it, then they had never seen Zhang Feng's ability. Even Yuan Tiangang, the old faker, said that this kid was strange and that he was the Z-Way star in the sky. Then the old guy he was talking about now, was it true? The two of them thought so. They couldn't help but get excited. Tell us. What are you waiting for? Hurry up. Seeing that the two of them were about to fight, Zhang Feng hurriedly got up. He avoided the two of them and said, "This thing is strange. I was scared at that time. These things were not even written in the book. But I met it that day. How can I not be afraid?" So I struggled on his back, but it was to no avail. When I opened my eyes, guess what happened? I had already appeared at the highest peak of Qinling. What is that called? The highest one is called Luoxia Slope. Tell us what happened in the end. By the way, don't talk about these useless things. Just tell us, what did this old man say to you? The more the two of them listened, the more excited they became. They hurriedly raised their hands to slap Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng was scared and pointed at the two of them. Hey, what are you doing? I won't tell you if you continue like this. Lao Tzu is too lazy to play basketball. Seeing this, the two of them were ready to sandwich Zhang Feng in the middle. Zhang Feng couldn't sit still. He hurriedly said, "Don't, I beg you two brothers to spare me. I will tell you, okay? Speaking of which, that's not right. After Master brought me up the mountain, he said that I'm a genius that's hard to come by in 100 years and that I'm a savior of the world. He wanted to teach me some skills. Of course I didn't want to. There are many old swindlers like him in Phoenix Ridge. How can I believe him?" But the old man is not happy. He pointed at the foot of the mountain. At that time, I was deceived. Do you know? He told me to go down alone. Oh my God, it's so high. How can it go down? In the end, under his tyranny, I gave in and became his disciple. After that, this old fellow stayed in a rundown temple in the mountains all day long and didn't go anywhere. Then in just 3 months' time After that, the old guy ran away. He only said that he was going to play on the other side of the sea. When I have the ability to go to the other side of the sea, he will teach me his real ability. Immortal? Yu Qigong and Cheng Yaojin were dumbfounded. These two words instantly flashed through their minds. Only such a person could train such an awesome disciple. You're saying that your master only taught you for a month? Yu Qigong asked, somewhat confused. Zhang Feng nodded. Yes, master said that I shouldn't bite off more than I can chew. Cheng Yaojin and Yu Qigong almost spat blood on Zhang Feng's face. You've already learned so much, and you still call that biting off more than you can chew? Do you have any shame? You kid, tell me about this basketball first. When we have time, we'll talk about your master. Cheng Yaojin choked on a mouthful of smoke, his face flushed red. What they cared about was this thing that could prolong their lives. In the early years, the two of them squandered wantonly because of their strong bodies. However, in the recent 2 years, they stopped and realized that there was something wrong with their bodies. Especially at night, their backs would ache. Thunder, rain, and change of weather would make their bones feel as if someone was whipping them. This was the torture that all the generals had to endure. Don't look at how awesome they were during the day. But once night fell, they would turn into cowards. Therefore, as long as you heard of something on the market that could prolong one's life and strengthen one's body, you wouldn't find a single trace of it the next day. This was the reason why the bone-strengthening powder and locusts could be accepted by people. Because those things were really useful. However, these things were temporary. If they ran out this year, they would have to wait until next year to have more. This made them worried. Although they already had some in stock, they couldn't afford to eat it. At this time, when he heard Zhang Feng say that the basketball had such an effect, how could Yu Qigong sit still? Now, his mind was full of basketball. Seeing that the two of them were successfully led to the right path, Zhang Feng said with a smile, "This basketball is not medicine. It's just a sport, just like kickball." Sport. The two of them were a little confused. Yes, it's a sport. Look at the people in Chang'an City now. What's the best thing for them? It's to stroll around the streets and brag. This won't do. People have to find something to do. Otherwise, after walking around for a day or sleeping for a day, their whole body will be scattered. When the two of them heard this, they felt that there was really such a thing. Sometimes, the two of them couldn't sleep at night because of the pain. Whenever they had time during the day, they would sleep. However, it was different in the military camp. On the contrary, they felt that nothing was wrong. Involuntarily, the two of them listened more carefully to Zhang Feng's words. When Zhang Feng saw this, he said again, "I'll tell you a secret, but you have to promise that you won't tell anyone." Chapter 873. Yu Qigong and Cheng Yaojin were completely taken in by Zhang Feng's words. Zhang Feng was right no matter what he said. Seeing that Zhang Feng was about to say something extraordinary, they couldn't help but stare at him. "What are you talking about? Don't you trust me?" Zhang Feng waved his hand again and again. "It's nothing. If that's the case, then I'll say it. Basketball, to put it bluntly, is a course that our academy will open in the future. It's called physical education. But this thing can be used in the army. From the streets to the army, and then to the palace. Have you thought about it? What if one day, basketball completely replaces Kuju? What will happen? By then, all the big families will have this thing in their courtyards. The streets will be filled with children and old women playing basketball. In the army, this is a very good activity to select the top talents. This thing has an extremely high physical requirement. From children playing to old women to the academy, and then to the army, there are some things in there. Although they are all played by people, the technology, how to cooperate in battle, how to cooperate, and how to consume energy are all arranged in a straight line. So, wait a moment. Yu Qigong hurriedly interrupted Zhang Feng. At this time, his curly beard was trembling. The fleas on his beard were jumping everywhere as if there was an earthquake. It seemed to show Yu Qigong's excitement at this time. Zhang Feng waved his hand and said in a very gentlemanly manner. He waved his hand and made a gesture of invitation. "Go ahead. What kind of gesture is this?" Yu Qigong and Cheng Yaojin were a little confused and asked. Zhang Feng also felt abrupt, but he was thick-skinned and said, "This is a etiquette on the basketball court. It means gentlemanly demeanor. The so-called gentlemanly demeanor is the demeanor of a man." Oh! It turned out that this was gentlemanly etiquette with one hand behind his back and the right hand reaching out to someone's face? The two of them couldn't help but remember this deeply in their hearts. Yu Qigong and Cheng Yaojin fought for the right to speak. In the end, Yu Qigong took the lead and said, "Do you think this can be fully used in the military?" Afraid that Zhang Feng would misunderstand, Yu Qigong explained again, "Didn't I set up a military training ground? This looks a little interesting, but these little guys are like little chicks. It's not easy to choose the best one. How do you think you can apply this to the military?" Well, Zhang Feng really didn't know how to do it. Looking at the chessboard left behind by Li Yuan in the corner, he could not help but have a bright idea. Actually, this is very easy to choose. You can't really split into two groups to gang up on each other, and you can't go one by one. This way, you can only reflect the size of their fists. In terms of military judgment and overall coordination, you really can't see anything. For example, this expectation. The real talent in the game takes the overall situation into consideration. In this basketball court, for example, you two, old Chen and old Yu, each of you sent out 5 players. It's not up to me to decide how to win, nor is it up to fists. It's up to the person who can throw the ball into the basket the most times without breaking any rules. Only the person who can throw the ball into the basket the most times will win. This will test the cooperation of the entire team. Yes. In the military, this is also called calling out soldiers on the battlefield. Tell me, what do you think of this thing? At this time, it was finally Chang Yaojin's turn to speak. He hurriedly said, but this doesn't reflect the difference in it. How can you see that it's good for physical fitness and the selection of military seedlings? It's better to just throw them into the mountains and come back alive. That's the kind of method that works? Zhang Feng looked at Chang Yaojin with some disdain and said, are you going to follow them into the mountains and watch them one by one? Chang Yaojin shook his head. Zhang Feng spread his hands and said, isn't that enough? As a general, it's impossible for him to do everything by himself. So, how can he really choose? I realize that this needs to be done under his nose. Although my military training manual also mentioned this, it's more important to pay attention to one's physical fitness training. Basketball is different. This thing not only requires you to judge the opponent's attacking route, but also to consider your teammates. You have to operate your hands, eyes, and brain at the same time. This is the embodiment of a whole, and whether an individual's physical fitness and the ability to coordinate the battle as a whole. Do you understand now? After Zhang Feng finished speaking, he looked at them. Only then did he realize that these two guys were already stunned. When Zhang Feng saw this, he did not say anything. He just smiled and drank his beer to moisten his throat. The grievances he had suffered during this period of time seemed to have dissipated a lot when he bragged today. Awesome. It was simply too awesome. While drinking, Zhang Feng was also thinking about basketball at this time. In order to win this mid-autumn hunt, basketball was very important. After all, this was the only thing he was familiar with. The Kuju of the Tang dynasty. Forget it, how was that Kuju? It was simply a group of people fighting. Often, at least a few people would die if an abnormal Kuju was played. Zhang Feng could not stand this. However, he had to participate in this mid-autumn hunt. Therefore, if Zhang Feng wanted to promote this thing at this time, it would depend on whether his bragging was good or not. But now, it seemed that the effect was surprisingly good. Chapter 874. Chang Yaojin and Yu Qigong had never seen such a thing before. They were soldiers, and they were only focused on how to lead the army well and how to reduce the number of deaths of the people under their command. Usually, as long as they heard that there were good things that could be used on soldiers, they would use force to get it. After all, it was not easy to train a soldier. Ever since the new recruit training rules were introduced, although it had only been half a month, the results were obvious. The lazy and sloppy soldiers were gone. Although their appetites had increased greatly. Who were they? They were the gods of the army. As long as they heard that there was a lot of food, they would go and visit. They would not lend it to them? Fine, then they would stay here. Although their reputation was bad, at least they could let the people under them fill their stomachs, right? Who would not want to train a seedling successor from their hands? Everyone wanted to, but there were some secret ways in the army. Although they knew, there was nothing they could do. However, if what this kid said was right, then, once this basketball was tested successfully and brought to the military camp, they would be able to find some hidden talents at any time anywhere. However, this was not a big deal. The key was, could this thing really strengthen the body? Was it really as he said, that it could be played by two people, and that it was as simple as deducing on a sand table? Fengzi, what you said is right, but does this have anything to do with your master? Although you said it was extravagant, can this thing really strengthen the body and prolong life? The two suddenly thought of something important and could not help but realize that they had been led astray by this kid. Zhang Feng looked at Yu Qigong in surprise, but soon, Zhang Feng recovered. He really did not expect that Yu Qigong would react so quickly. But was it useful? Zhang Feng leaned on the door mysteriously and looked left and right. Then, he sneakily closed the door and bolted it. They watched Zhang Feng's series of actions. Yu Qigong and Cheng Yaojin could not help but feel ecstatic. Zhang Feng put his hands behind his back and lit a cigarette. Like a wise old monk, he wandered around the tavern for a long time, brewing his emotions. When Zhang Feng felt that it was about time, he slowly said, "Old you asked about electronics. I did not intend to tell you, but since you asked, and we are brothers, then as brothers, although there is an oath, there are some things that I have to tell you. That will rot your butts, so I can only tell you what I can, but you have to promise me that you will not tell anyone. Otherwise this oath You will be in big trouble. The two were shocked when they heard this. There was such a thing? However, the two of them weren't fools. Naturally, they knew the severity of the matter. After the two of them swore, Zhang Feng said, "Actually, this thing is something that my master has been practicing, just like the 5 animal frolics. You should know about this, right?" Upon hearing this, Yu Qigong and Chang Yaojin nodded their heads like a rattledrum. If they did not know about it, they would have lived in vain. They had to memorize a set of things every day. How could they forget? Could it be? The two looked at each other in horror. Zhang Feng nodded solemnly and said, "I heard from my master that this thing was something that he had researched before." In the end, he passed it on to one of his followers. F***CK, are you saying that Hua Tuo is your master's? Can you F***King keep your voice down? Do you want to go to Chang'an City now and publicize it? Zhang Feng pretended to be nervous and stared at Chang Yaojin, pointed at his nose and shouted. In an instant, Chang Yaojin and Yu Qigong's hair stood on end. Although they did not believe it, they understood at this time. Was this thing born from the 5 animals frolics? Many people had studied the 5 animals frolics, especially the old faker Yuan Tiangang, who always said that this thing was a work of God. But he never dared to study anything from it. Could it be? Yes. Just as you think, this thing is indeed something that my master has improved. And my master has to train 3 times a day in the morning, noon, and night. No matter whether the weather is good or bad, he will, he said, this can. Speaking of this, Zhang Feng didn't dare to say the word longevity out loud. If this was spread out, that would definitely bring about the calamity of death. Throughout history, all the kings and emperors had been going crazy for immortality. In the Tang dynasty, Li Shimin was also obsessed with this thing in the later period. If this was spread to that person's ears, the consequences were unimaginable. At this time, although Zhang Feng did not say that word, Yu Qigong and Cheng Yaojin were not fools. In their minds, the word longevity was already hanging high above their heads. Boy, you win. This information, it was really... Involuntarily the two of them thought about it. Fengzi, if you trust me, old Chen, let us do this thing. Don't worry what you just said. Even if Lao Li asks, we won't say anything. Zhang Feng's eyes lit up, but then he sighed deeply. Alas! It's not that I don't want to do it. It's that this thing is too expensive. I have no money. Chapter 875. After contracting the construction of the basketball court, Cheng Yaojin and Yu Qigong walked out of the tavern in a daze. With trembling hands, they smoked one cigarette after another and strolled aimlessly on the streets of Chang'an. They walked past Tonghui Lane and disturbed the people there. It was not until the guards at the imperial city gates placed a long halberd on their necks that the cold and familiar feeling woke them up. They glanced at the imperial city gates and the guards who recognized them and were trembling with fear. They turned numbly and squatted in the corner. I say, old He, how much of what Fengzi said is true? Yu Qigong asked in a hoarse voice. Chang Yaojin did not say anything for a long time. He also wanted to know if what the kid said was true. Some of it was true. But from the locust powder and bone-strengthening powder, Chang Yaojin really believed that what the kid said was true. After all, he had eaten those 2 things before. Once he ate those things, he felt much stronger, as if he had returned to his youth more than a decade ago. Even the pain all over his body and the pain in his knees rarely acted up. The wrinkles on his face and the white hair on his head seemed to have lessened. He really did look a decade younger. And what was that? That thing was something that could be seen and eaten with flavor. It was something that could be swallowed into the stomach. But now, what was this thing? Was it really that magical? Everyone, from old women to children, could play with it. Moreover, there were so many things inside it. What could it do? Could it be that he could make her younger just by playing with her? Cheng Yaojin could not help but feel conflicted. I don't know. But this kid is really bad. He didn't even boast about the bone-strengthening powder like that. Yu Qigong sighed helplessly when he heard that. Isn't that so? Do you think we should discuss it with the emperor first? Or... Yu Qigong did not know what to do now. This matter is really tricky. If you want to tell His Majesty about it, what should you say? The emperor's brain would immediately think of that matter. They had sworn an oath not to spread it out, but if they didn't tell the emperor, what would they do if the emperor blamed them? This kid had nothing to do. Why did he make it sound so strange? Yu Qigong could not help but feel conflicted. When the two guards at the city gate brought 2 chairs for them, Yu Qigong and Cheng Yaojin gritted their teeth and said, "Damn it, let's do it. At least let's see if this matter is really as strange as Fengzi said, and then report it to the emperor in detail." Just as the two made up their minds to build a basketball court, Li Chengqian's face was covered in dirt as he pulled the chariot of black coal out of the Vermilion Bird Gate. As soon as they exited the city gates, Li Chengqian saw the dumbfounded Yu Qigong and his companion. He hurriedly got out of the palanquin and waved at them. When the two of them saw that it was the crown prince, they looked at each other and hurried away as if they hadn't seen him. Li Chengqian was dumbfounded. He waved his hand and asked, "Go check where those two went just now." "There's no need to check. The 2 dukes just went to the tavern and then squatted here for a long time," the guard leader hurriedly said. Li Chengqian was even more dumbfounded. Why did they turn into idiots after leaving the tavern? And why did Fengzi come to the tavern at this time? Li Chengqian's mind became active. He said to the guard leader, "Immediately send these things to the forge. I'll go to the tavern to take a look." Yes. Inside the carriage, Li Chengqian took 2 handfuls of black soot from the soles of his feet and rubbed it on his face. Then, he changed into a new set of clothes. Without anyone noticing, he slipped out of the carriage and swaggered towards Tong Hui Fong. Li Chengqian's mind was filled with Yu Qigong and Cheng Yaojin's abnormal actions. If it was not Zhang Feng who did it, would he believe it? Both of them were extremely simple-minded. How could anyone see them in such a perplexed state? They were famous for being careless. How could they be like this? Obviously, if it was not Zhang Feng who made them confused, then it would be strange. Tong Hui Lane was not far. Moreover, Li Chengqian was familiar with all kinds of small roads. In a short while, Li Chengqian's head appeared at the entrance of the tavern. Looking at Zhang Feng, who was picking his teeth and drinking wine while lying on the recliner, Li Chengqian was furious. "Wow, you sent us all away. So you're hiding here to drink alone?" Zhang Feng's sudden roar scared the cup of wine to the point that it splashed on Zhang Feng's face, causing him to cough repeatedly. "I say, damn you. Can't you say something when you're here? Are you a thief?" Zhang Feng was so angry that his eyes were spitting fire. However, Li Chengqian did not care. Under Zhang Feng's gaze, he walked into the tavern and sat opposite of Zhang Feng. He picked up Zhang Feng's exquisite iron flask and gulped down 2 big mouthfuls. "This wine is still the best. Fengzi, give me another jug. This small flask is not enough." Chapter 876. Zhang Feng was very angry. The consequence was naturally, "Didn't I ask you to get the coal? You got the coal? You still have the nerve to drink here? I only have such a small pot of wine. Can't you leave me alone for a while?" Zhang Feng roared with some distress. He pointed at the leftovers on the table after Chang Yaojin and Qin Haodong had left. Li Chengqian didn't care about that. He drank the wine and ate the leftovers on the table with relish. After coming down from Shao Mountain today, Li Chengqian rode the white horse all the way to the imperial palace. After reporting to Li Shimin waved his hand and wrote a note directly. Then he asked Li Chengqian to search the imperial palace thoroughly. All the places where coal could be hidden, from the imperial kitchen to the Imperial Institute of Medicine, were searched thoroughly. Even the local treasury of Chang'an City was thoroughly searched by Li Chengqian. But even so, Li Chengqian only got 3 carts of coal. Li Chengqian didn't know why Zhang Feng wanted so much coal, but his reason told him that the steel was ready this time. And the most important thing was that the gun Zhang Feng promised him was ready. Seeing that he couldn't do anything to Li Chengqian, Zhang Feng had to say helplessly, "Eat, eat, eat, sooner or later you will die. By the way, how are you doing with the coal? You still talk about coal? Since I came down from Shao Mountain today, I haven't touched a single grain of rice. But fortunately, I'm resourceful and really got 3 carts of coal. Now I'm transporting it to the mountain. But let me tell you something. In the whole Chang'an City, except for those officials, there is no coal. If you want it, You have to wait for Uncle Yu to get it for you from Tubo. Or wait for the people of the Wang clan to open a kiln. Zhang Feng let out a sigh of relief after learning that he had obtained 3 carriages of coal. So be it. At least his urgent need was solved. As for coal, Zhang Feng had been thinking about how to smelt steel when he was lying on the recliner. Coal was really a necessary material. Otherwise, if the temperature was not high enough, iron would not be able to be smelted into steel. However, if he were to rely on transporting coal from Tubo, it would be impossible to put out a nearby fire. Moreover, if someone were to find out about his secret, then he would be standing on the cusp of the storm. Zhang Feng couldn't help but shrink back into the recliner. Looking at Li Chengqian, who was stuffing himself with food, he couldn't help but ask, "Are there any coal mountains near Chang'an?" "Why are you asking this?" Li Chengqian asked in surprise. He bit his chopsticks and pondered for a long time before saying, "If it's a mountain of coal, there shouldn't be any. Otherwise, we wouldn't have spent such a high price to buy coal from the Wang clan. Moreover, those big clans seem to have a dog's nose." Chapter 877. Calling him Brother Zhang. Li Chengqian was so embarrassed that his cancer was acting up. But in order to find out if there was a coal mine in Lantian County, Li Chengqian endured it. Zhang Feng and Niu Weili chatted for a bit, and even drank 3 bowls of wine. They still had their arms around each other's necks, and kept calling each other old brothers. "Brother, I heard that your hometown is in Lantian?" Niu Weili was already dizzy after drinking 3 bowls of white wine. He had never drunk such wine before, and it was 3 big bowls in a row. No one could take it. "Yes. Yes, brother, how did you know?" "Hey, who in Chang and city doesn't know Master Niu's name? Who doesn't know him? I've been sitting on the mountain and I've been hearing people talking about Master Niu." Niu Weili patted Zhang Feng's shoulder with a red face and said, "Don't talk about it, brother has a hard time." Li Chengqian rolled his eyes and continued to drink his wine. Zhang Feng continued to ask, "Then brother, can you tell me about Lantian?" "Brother, my Shao mountain is not far from Lantian. I plan to buy some property in Lantian. Can you tell me about it?" Hearing that, Niu Weili patted his chest and said, "Then brother, you found the right person. I've been a county magistrate in Lantian for so many years, and I grew up drinking Lantian water. I remember every blade of grass and every tree in Lantian. When the time comes, just tell me, what are you going to do?" Zhang Feng's eyes lit up and he hurriedly asked, "Then brother, can you tell me about Lantian? After all, I haven't been to Lantian." "Hey! What's the big deal?" Lantian. Niu Weili took advantage of the wine and said a lot of things while he was dizzy and spitting saliva. Finally, after he finished, Zhang Feng poured him another bowl of wine and asked, "Then brother, do you have coal in Lantian?" "Coal?" In an instant, Niu Weili woke up. "I know about this thing, but I've only heard of it. The place in Lantian's Erpi Gully is also called Erpi Ridge. There are people there who saw a black stone when they were herding cattle and sheep. They said that it was burning and smoking. I don't know if it's true or not. But other than that, Lantian has never heard of this thing." After saying that, Niu Weili was shocked and hurriedly asked, "Don't tell me you want to." Zhang Feng nodded. Meanwhile, Li Chengqian could no longer sit still as he looked at Niu Weili in shock. Seeing Zhang Feng nod, Niu Weili was silent for a while before he said, "If it was someone else, I wouldn't have said this. But since you asked, I'll give you a piece of advice. Do you know the people of Taiyuan Wang clan?" When Zhang Feng heard about the Wang clan again, and it was about a county magistrate, his face couldn't help but turn solemn. "I know, but what does this have to do with the Wang clan?" Niu Weili poured himself a bowl of wine and said, "Brother, you don't know." A few years ago, when I was working in Lantian, the people of the Wang clan would come here every few days. Although I didn't know what they were doing, I learned from a drunkard of the Wang clan later that the people of the Wang clan were looking for underground things. But in the past 2 years, they didn't go there often. If you want to do this, you have to weigh the power of the Wang clan first, otherwise. Hearing Niu Weili's words, Li Chengqian's face suddenly changed. The people of the Wang clan actually extended their claws to Lantian? However, Zhang Feng wasn't interested in these things. As long as this place wasn't sold, the Lao Tzu wouldn't be afraid of you. When the Lao Tzu got the firearms, I don't care what your family name is. If you provoke the Lao Tzu will wipe you out in minutes. Brother, did the people of the Wang clan buy land in Lontian? With this question, Nyo Weili instantly fell silent. After drinking a full bowl of wine, Nyo Weili said, "No, but they have seen the place in Erpy Ridge a few times. Otherwise, how could I remember living in this place?" Zhang Feng instantly breathed a sigh of relief. It was good that it wasn't sold. Once the important matters were dealt with. Zhang Feng and Nyo Weili chatted about this and that until Nyo Weili was drunk. Zhang Feng said to Li Chengqian, "Now you should know what to do, right?" "How would I know what you want to do? Are you going to kill him to silence him?" Zhang Feng looked at Li Chengqian as if looking at an idiot. "Why don't you kill him for me to see? Lao Tzu wants you to buy land. Buy the entire Erpy Ridge for me, as well as the area around it. Buy as much as you can. Buy land." Although the price of land other than arable land was very low, it still cost 10 copper coins per mu. Zhang Feng just had to say that he was going to buy the land. Where was the money? While talking, Li Chengqian stretched out his hand. "Give me the money. I'll buy it now." Zhang Feng was a little confused. "Look at how much my meat is worth. Take it and sell it." Li Chengqian also cried when he heard that. He looked at Zhang Feng and said, "Brother, my good brother, look at how much my meat is worth. I really don't have any money. Give me some money to build the school. If it weren't for those industries in Chang'an, I would have sold clothes in pawn shops." Chapter 878. The land in the Tang dynasty was extremely cheap. As long as you had money. With legal procedures, you could buy and sell as much as you wanted. No one would care, and they would be too lazy to leave. People would even want you to buy the entire piece of land. That would be great. This was the Tang dynasty. If this was the suburbs of Xi'an in the future, where every inch of land was worth an inch of gold, hee. Zhang Feng drove Li Chengqian away. As long as he got the coal mine, he would also be a person with a mine. After Zhang Feng casually cleaned up the dishes, he wanted to sleep, but he couldn't fall asleep after tossing and turning. He couldn't help but take out the dirt that Nyo Weili had sent. These things, although they didn't look like much, only Zhang Feng knew that they were good things. Potatoes. The potato in Zhang Feng's hand was not big, only the size of an egg. And its color was brown. This was the earliest type of potato. Zhang Feng didn't know if this potato had really been soaked in water. Logically speaking, he really didn't believe that a broken ship could survive such a long journey. Even if this potato was lucky enough to survive such a long journey, it was still unknown if it could be grown. Zhang Feng couldn't help but secretly pray in his heart. Since he couldn't sleep, Zhang Feng couldn't help but think about the potatoes. The brewery was next door. Holding the 7 potatoes, Zhang Feng went out with his hands behind his back. He hadn't been to the brewery for a long time. At this time, because of the wheat, few people came in and out of the brewery. But once the wheat was harvested, it would definitely be very lively. But at this time, except for the malt smell of distillers' grains, it seemed abandoned. The Chang'an brewery sign hung at the entrance. At this time, there was no one guarding. As soon as he entered the brewery, he saw 3 old men using brooms to clean up the distillers' grains piled up everywhere in the big yard. When he saw someone come in, Old Man Chu lazily shouted without raising his head, "There's no more wine. You have to wait 2 days for more wine." "You are Feng, Prince Zhang?" One of the old men seemed to recognize Zhang Feng, and exclaimed before the other man finished speaking. Hearing this, the remaining 2 old men hurriedly turned around. Seeing that it was indeed Zhang Feng, the 3 old men happily welcomed him. "Hee, are you busy?" Zhang Feng greeted the 3 old men with a smile. No. It's so idle that it's going to get moldy. It's because the weather is good, so I'm thinking of drying these wine grains. When spring comes, I'll send them to the fields in Shao Mountain to plant crops there." Obviously, they didn't know that Zhang Feng didn't plant any crops on the deserted mountain. In their minds, if they could buy a mountain, wouldn't that mean it was an important place? However, the unintentional actions of these 3 old men still made Zhang Feng somewhat moved. If this potato could be successfully cultivated and tested within this year, then Ma Zhou might be busy next year. Zhang Feng smiled as he looked at the three old men and taught them how to let the distiller's grains ferment naturally. After teaching them, Zhang Feng and the three old men sat on the firewood in front of the stove and asked, "How's the brewery sales now?" Sigh. Hearing this, the three old men instantly sighed. If it was a month ago, the threshold here would have been broken. However, ever since the famine, some people who were so hungry that they didn't even let go of the distiller's grains. It's great now. Although the famine has basically stabilized, the beer is considered a waste. Without food, what can we do? So now, in order to make a living, basically everyone has gone to Shao Mountain. Only the three of us are here to guard the door. If your friends send food over, the three of us can basically take care of it. It's also considered as guarding the door. Zhang Feng heard this and felt helpless. Without food, how could they brew the beer? However, now that Lao Li had the recipe for the white wine, this old man must have put his focus on the white wine. How could he think of this? The three old men were probably going to be idle for a long time. However, looking at the potatoes in his hand, Zhang Feng couldn't help but be interested. Three old men, I plan to close the brewery by the end of the year. Hearing this, a trace of loneliness flashed across the three old men's faces. Although there was only a daily income of 5 copper coins, what was that for? They were guarding the door. They were already in their 60s. The old village chief pitied them for being able to find a job here. They didn't starve to death during the famine. Now, if the owner wanted to close the brewery, what could they say? However, Zhang Feng's next sentence made the three old men very excited. However, although the brewery is closed, this place will still be guarded by the three of you. I have a secret mission here. This mission is very difficult. I don't usually tell people. However, seeing that the three of you are respected elders in Tonghui Fang, I want to ask for your help. How could the three old men withstand Zhang Feng's words? They were so agitated that their toothless lips trembled. Prince Zhang, what are you talking about? The three of us have been servants for our whole lives. We originally wanted to starve to death. Fortunately, Tonghui Fang has a deity like you. The entire Tonghui Fang has received good news. Zhang Feng's face turned stiff. If the three of you continue to be like this, that kid will find someone else. Hearing this, the three old men immediately stopped crying. Zhang Feng opened a paper bag in his hand and revealed 7 potatoes inside. I'll teach you a way later. You must remember that this thing is very precious. At least we don't have it in the Tang dynasty. This is from here. Zhang Feng pointed to the sky as he spoke. The three old men were so frightened that they trembled and almost knelt down again. Zhang Feng hurriedly threatened them again. Only then did the three old men stand up in shock. This is good stuff. Once it's planted, there will be no famine. Hearing this, the old men who had been farming for their whole lives couldn't sit still. They all gathered around and looked at the potatoes. Some even rubbed their wrinkled faces against the potatoes. It didn't matter if they saw it. Some of them even wanted to take a bite. Zhang Feng quickly stopped them. How is it? This is something from the heavens. Do you dare to get it out with the kid? However, without my permission, even your closest family members are not allowed to know about this. Do you understand? This is a secret of the heavens. If the secret of the heavens is revealed, you will die without descendants. You're old enough to be this kid's grandfather. Let's not be like this. While speaking, Zhang Feng searched his body. He didn't bring anything, so he simply picked up the paper bag that contained the potatoes and wrote a large sentence on it with charcoal. Then, he handed the paper to one of the three old men and said, "From now on, the three of you are directly under my control. Except for my orders, no one is allowed to enter. When you go back, take this to Chang and University and find the old Xiaocai. Someone will naturally send your 3 meals a day. If there's anything, ask the old Xiaocai to find me. But you must remember that this thing is really important. Once it germinates, you must inform me immediately." The three old men looked at each other. Finally, the three of them knelt down with a plop. Zhang Feng was a little at a loss. Prince Zhang, the three of us have worked for others for a lifetime. How can we accept this? If you want us to do something, just say it. Why do you need to do this? Yes. If you do this, we won't be able to sleep well. It was not an exaggeration to say that these people were lowly bones. A lifetime of slavery made them accustomed to being ordered around. Although they also knew Zhang Feng's name, they were still a little surprised when they were alone with him. Out of the winery gate, Zhang Feng could not help but sigh. Slavery society was like this. Servility. If you want to be good to a person and want to treat him as a person, it was simply harming him. But for the three old men, Zhang Feng did not care. After all, they did not have much time left. Besides, as long as they could cultivate these potatoes, even if they were given good clothes and jade food, it was not a big deal. Compared to these potatoes, what does that count for? Today, Zhang Feng, Yu Qigong, and the others bragged. Although a lot of it was false, they just wanted to let them understand and know the role of basketball. However, for Zhang Feng, there was only one sentence in what he said today, which was for himself. That was to go to the other side of the ocean. If he wanted to travel the world, he had to build a boat first. The premise of building a boat was that the Science and Technology Department could build a steam engine. All of these were like huge mountains. They were rotten and pressed on Zhang Feng's body. Although Zhang Feng liked this way of life in the Tang dynasty, he also wanted to urgently change this era. After all, he was used to the modern way of life. Let him come to this era where there was not even paper to wipe his ass. Could he stand it? Only change. Only then could they know how big this world was. And they were like frogs at the bottom of a well. He pointed at his eyes and said, "Look at my eyes, they're from staying up all night." Hearing this, the old village head looked carefully and couldn't help but ask, "Tell me what's going on?" "It's like this. Yesterday, young Master Zhang sent me the strange thing in the pot. He wanted me to turn it into a ball, but after pondering for a long time, I couldn't figure out anything. How can this thing be turned into a ball?" "Master, wait. Are you talking about that basketball?" Hearing this, not only was Niu Pai Huang stunned, even the old village chief was stunned. This term, he hadn't heard of it on the mountain? What was this Feng Zi up to now? The old village chief couldn't help but sit on the doorstep and stomp his walking stick on the ground. He said, "Tell me in detail, what is this basketball?" Niu Pai Huang's apprentice said, "This morning when I was waiting at the city gate, I heard someone say that there was something that everyone, from old women to children, can play with. It's called basketball. They also said that this thing can not only strengthen one's body, but also prolong one's life, relax one's muscles, and promote blood circulation." Then, he figured out the whole thing. The old village chief and the others were also stunned. What was this? Could it be? In the end, the gazes of the three converged on the pungent paste in the pot. This could prolong one's life? It could strengthen one's body? I'll be damned if I believe you. Hey, this prodigal. The matter of this paper hasn't been clarified yet, and he's starting to stir up trouble again? Niu Pai Huang, wait for me first. This matter isn't urgent. I'll go look for Feng Zi now. No matter whether this matter was caused by him or not, we can't let him harm others. This thing, what is it that can strengthen one's body and prolong one's life? I almost died just by inhaling it. Don't do it first. Wait for me to come back." As he spoke, the old village chief left angrily. Although he didn't know what this thing was, he had lived for more than half of his life and had never seen such a smelly thing before. If this thing could prolong one's life, then it was simply. There was nothing that could prolong one's life. No. He couldn't let Feng Zi be led into a ditch by those guys. They were a bunch of stubborn people to begin with. Even with their father, what could they do? Wasn't this considered stubborn? A bunch of stubborn people. What good things could they come up with? This was simply a thing that could harm people, wasn't it? If this was created, wouldn't it be terrible? This Feng Zi's head. When he thought of this, the old village chief's expression changed drastically. He leaned on his walking stick, bent his back, and ignored everyone along the way. He lowered his head and hurriedly ran towards Zhang Feng's pub. Chapter 881. Fengzi. Fengzi, hello? Are you awake? Zhang Feng, give the old man. Outside Yulai restaurant. The old village chief shouted at the top of his lungs. Although there weren't many people in Tonghui Square in the morning, there were still many night watchmen or people who went to work for the rich. At this moment, they couldn't help but stop and watch. Old village chief, what's wrong with you? Why are you acting crazy so early in the morning? When the old village chief heard this, he raised his crutch and was about to beat someone up. Who's the shameless one who said that I'm acting crazy? When that person heard this, he lifted the night fragrance bucket on his shoulder and walked away with a mischievous smile. An old man who was familiar with the old village chief hurriedly pulled him back and said, "Old village, are you tired of living? Fengzi is now a lord and the chancellor of White Deer College. He's someone who has received an imperial order. Hurry up and stop messing around. When the county magistrate comes, you'll have to bear the consequences. Be careful not to go to jail." That's right, old village chief. Yesterday, I saw Lord Niu personally visit Fengzi. Yes. We all saw it. Old man, calm down. Creak. Amidst the hubbub, Zhang Feng finally couldn't sleep anymore. When he opened the door, he couldn't help but get a fright. Looking at the dumbfounded faces of the crowd, he asked, "Good morning, everyone. What are you all doing here so early in the morning?" When the old village chief heard this, he waved his crutch and chased everyone away. Then, he pulled Zhang Feng into the small restaurant and locked the door. "Fengzi, I want to ask you something. Tell me honestly." Zhang Feng thought that something had happened on the mountain. He hurriedly invited the old village chief to sit down and said, "Go ahead. I'm listening. Let me ask you. That basketball, did you ask Niu Pai Huang to play with it?" "Yes." "What's wrong?" Zhang Feng scratched his head. It seemed that this matter didn't happen on the mountain. As long as it didn't happen on the mountain, then it was fine. But when the old village head learned that Zhang Feng really let Niu Pai Huang do that thing, he was so angry that he stamped his walking stick several times and said, "Ridiculous, this is ridiculous. Look at you. I told you not to fool around with those little bastards on the street, but you didn't listen to me. Look at you now. Didn't you hear the rumors in Chang'an City?" "What are you talking about?" Zhang Feng yawned and asked as he sat across from the village chief. "What can I say? You said that basketball can prolong one's life, strengthen the body, relax the muscles, and activate the meridians." "Yeah, that's how it is." This was indeed what Zhang Feng had asked old Yu and the others to do yesterday. He didn't make a mistake? How could this be? Old village chief, what happened? When the old village chief heard that, he instantly collapsed onto the bench and sighed. "Sigh. It's all my fault for not stopping those street thieves earlier. It's also your fault. Your parents left early. This old man was also blinded by the benefits of the paper mill. Otherwise, I wouldn't have allowed you to know each other." Zhang Feng was like a monk. He was completely dumbfounded by what the village chief said. He hurriedly asked, "What exactly happened? Please tell me." "What happened? I just entered the city this morning. Fortunately, Niu Pai Huang's disciple waited for me. He said that you asked Niu Pai Huang to make something. Niu Pai Huang couldn't make it after an entire night. He wanted to look for you, but he didn't dare to. So he blocked old He at the city gate. He didn't expect me to be blocked. This is a good blockage. Otherwise, I really don't know what kind of heartless thing you are doing. I also don't know where you got a pot of black stuff for Niu Pai Huang. That smell almost made me go see my wife immediately. You said that it can strengthen the body with just this. You said that it can prolong one's life with just this? Be a human. Aren't we losing our conscience? You." Zhang Feng was speechless. This was simply, what a joke. The old village chief was just concerned about him. Maybe, you don't have to say it. Damn it, this. Zhang Feng could only be patient and wait for the old village chief to vent his anger. Then he said, "Old man, there's something you don't know. This thing, I spent a lot of effort to get someone to get it from an overseas immortal mountain. Didn't you always want to ask why Dr. Sun is always on the mountain?" When the old village chief heard that this thing was actually brought back from overseas, his eyes almost popped out. At this time, he heard that even Dr. Sun knew about this matter. He couldn't help but be curious. Then, Dr. Sun knows about this? Of course he knows. During this period of time, Dr. Sun was on the mountain looking for the medicinal materials for this thing. All the medicinal materials are mixed together, which is why there is such a smell. Think about it. Even Chinese medicine is so bitter, let alone this? This is a real treasure. I spent tens of thousands of gold leaves to exchange for it. The old village chief couldn't help but be fooled by Zhang Feng. He was so distressed that he almost cried. You prodigal, such an expensive thing, you, how can you bear to make it? Tell me first, how much can you make from this thing? Can you break even? Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. So, I'll have to trouble you to help me arrange it. When the old village chief heard this, he raised his hand and was about to hit him. However, in the end, his hand turned into a finger and pointed at Zhang Feng's forehead. He lamented, Hey, prodigal! How much money will it cost? Zhang Feng didn't stand on ceremony. He took the wooden spoon from Bullskin Yellow's hand and said, Look carefully, this is the most important point. The cowhide is cut along one side, and this thing is called rubber. If you pour it now, you have to pour it horizontally, ladle by ladle. There can't be any gaps. While speaking, Zhang Feng held up the basketball wrapped in cowhide with a triangular claw. Then, he put the basketball on the rubber pot and stirred the rubber ladle by ladle. At this time, everyone's eyes were wide open. They wanted to see what this Lord Zhang, President Zhang, was going to do. After pouring it 6 times, Zhang Feng breathed a sigh of relief. He looked at the crowd and said, Okay, it's done. Who has time to play, right? So this kid was thinking, look, where is this place? This is Chang'an. It's under the feet of the emperor. We, the people of Chang'an, represent the face of the Tang dynasty. This thing can't be lost, right? That's why I was wondering if I could make something like that nutritious porridge so that everyone could have something to play with during their leisure time. As for whether this thing can strengthen the body, whether it can relax the muscles and circulate the meridians, this can only be discovered by you slowly in the future. Prince Zhang, do you mean that we can all play with this thing? The kid sitting next to Zhang Feng asked again at this time. At this time, even the dark-faced wife stared at Zhang Feng, feeling incredulous. Zhang Feng nodded. Yes, that's right. I've already asked people to make it. Not only will there be it in every market in the future, but when the time is right, I'm willing to pay. If any of you play it well, I'll give you money. If any of you are outstanding, we'll hold basketball games twice a year in the future. If you win, I'll agree to 3 of your requests. If I ask you to marry me, will you agree? At this time, a girl asked in surprise. When Zhang Feng heard this, his scalp instantly went numb. However, before he could speak, the people of Tonghui Fong scolded the fat girl and chased her away. As long as it doesn't go against my principles, I, Zhang Feng, can do it. Zhang Feng hurriedly added in the end. Hearing this, everyone could not help but feel ecstatic. Although they did not know if playing this could strengthen their bodies, they could earn money and also get a promise from Zhang Feng. This was a rare opportunity to soar to the top. Who was Zhang Feng? He was the dean of White Deer College, the youngest hereditary viscount in Chang'an. Was there anything to say about this future? Everyone's eyes could not help but become fervent. At this time, Zhang Feng saw Niu Pihuang, who was in a daze at the back of the crowd. He waved his hand. Only then did everyone remember what they were here to do. They hurriedly opened up a path and looked at the black thing in Niu Pihuang's hand. The entire black ball was filled with lines left behind by pouring. There were also many traces of dripping on one side of the ball. Obviously, this was the bottom of the basketball stand. Zhang Feng took the basketball and subconsciously made the gesture of taking the ball in a basketball court in his previous life. He could not help but sigh in his heart. At this moment, the crowd instantly fell silent. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the black ball in Zhang Feng's hand. Finally, Zhang Feng moved. To be precise, Zhang Feng finally threw the black ball in his hand onto the ground under everyone's shocked gaze. Bang! 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 After that, he took the bowl of cold water that Niu Pai Huang had poured for him. Raising the wooden spoon high, he let the rubber in the spoon converge into a silk thread and drip into the bowl. When Zhang Feng saw that it was almost done, he picked up a cylindrical rubber stick that was thinner than a chopstick. He drew on the basketball's air inlet and dipped it in layers of rubber to make it the same size as the air inlet. Then, he smeared the rubber on the air inlet. After doing all this, Zhang Feng carefully aimed the rubber stick in his hand at the air inlet and pressed it into the air inlet. After a while, Zhang Feng picked up the basketball again and soaked it into a water tank. Then, he squeezed the basketball hard. After all, there was still air in the basketball. After repeated tests to make sure that there was no possibility of air leakage, Zhang Feng breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, the basketball was finally completed. What was left was the inflatable cylinder. As long as the inflatable cylinder could perfectly pierce through the air inlet's rubber, everything would be perfect. Prince Zhang, you're done just like that? The sudden voice really startled Zhang Feng. He turned around and saw that it was Cow Leather Huang's little disciple. Zhang Feng asked, "You saw it all?" The little disciple nodded. Zhang Feng asked again, "What's your name?" "My name is Guo Taibao. Prince Zhang. You can call me Xiaobao." Guo Taibao? Too full? Good name. Zhang Feng couldn't help but secretly give a thumbs up. The ancient people's attainments were simply at the peak, especially reflected in the name. It was simply, "Xiaobao, did you see all the steps I just took?" Hearing this, Guo Taibao thought that Zhang Feng was going to blame him. He was so scared that he hurriedly knelt on the ground. "Prince Zhang, I didn't mean it this." Guo Taibao was so anxious that he was about to cry. "Please don't tell my master and mistress, or I'll lose another layer of skin." Zhang Feng joked, "It's fine if you don't want me to say it. Let me ask you, did you remember the steps I just took?" "Yes." Zhang Feng heard this and nodded. "Good, then from now on, the matter of making this basketball will be handed over to you. Remember, this skill is not allowed to be spread, or you'll be beheaded. Do you understand? If it gets out, not only will your head be lost, your whole family and your master's head will also be lost." Guo Taibao was scared out of his wits. In an instant, Zhang Feng smelled an unpleasant urine smell. This guy, so easily frightened? Zhang Feng frowned and covered his nose. "When your master comes back, ask him to make an inflatable cylinder. As for how to make it and how to inflate it, I don't care. If I don't see him tomorrow morning, I'll find someone else to do this job." Chapter 886. Chang'an City was not a big place, but it was not small either. Even the slightest thing could spread throughout the city in an instant. Last night, out of nowhere, an unusual sound was heard. It was rumored that Zhang Feng, the dean of White Deer College in Shaoshan, had been observing the sky at night and had a great revelation. After the bone-strengthening powder and the nutritious porridge, he had come up with another activity that everyone could participate in. It was a good thing that could strengthen the body, relax the muscles, and prolong one's life. Moreover, it was something that Sun Si Miao, the miracle doctor, and the 4 great Confucian scholars had spent a month to come up with. Basketball. In an instant, the new word basketball spread like wildfire in Chang'an City. The main reason was that this thing was not like the bone-strengthening powder, which could only be used by the rich. It could be used by any ordinary person. This time, everyone was in an uproar. However, at this moment, everyone was shocked to find out that another incredible thing had happened in Tonghui Lane. They saw that under the big willow tree at the entrance of Tonghui Lane, a group of women who were bored out of their wits were squatting under a big willow tree and chatting. When a group of people from Tonghui Fong passed by and talked about something, the group of women couldn't help but block the group of women from passing by. "Did you just say that Prince Zhang should pay for the basketball?" The moment they asked that question, it became a big deal. More and more people gathered around. At this time, money was the most difficult to earn. Moreover, Shao Mountain, which had always been regarded as a land of evil, was now full of people and no longer hiring. Therefore, as soon as there was a rustling of grass in the wind, everyone pricked up their ears. The people in Tonghui Lane were naturally those who had just witnessed Zhang Feng's miraculous deeds from Niu Pihuang. Do you see what this is? The young man who had been sitting next to Zhang Feng held up half a cigarette in his hand excitedly and said, "This is a cigarette. It's a cigarette that only the Confucian scholars from White Deer College can enjoy." Hearing that, everyone was shocked. F***CK. Where did you steal this from? I heard that Prince Zhang went back to the tavern. Did you guys go there to steal? Hearing this, the group of women could not take it anymore. He was about to step forward and grab that person, preparing to send him to the authorities for punishment. That person was also anxious. Which eye of yours saw that I stole it? Let me tell you, Prince Zhang personally lit this cigarette for me and handed it to me. F***CK off. Zhou Bapi. It's good enough that you didn't steal it. Prince Zhang is such a noble person. Why would he speak for you? This person, Zhou Bapi, was very famous in this area. This was because he had a history of theft 3 times and had been paraded through the streets 3 times. It was hard not to know him. At this moment, he was actually holding something that only the rich could enjoy. The crowd didn't even need to think about it. Nero Zhou was also anxious. He pointed at the crowd behind him and said, "Look at their ears. That's Prince Zhang's cigarette." And they all saw it. At the entrance of Niu Pai Huang, Prince Zhang personally gave all of us cigarettes. If you don't believe me, let's go to the authorities now. I'll definitely sue you for framing me. Hearing that, the women finally saw that everyone who came out of Tonghui Lane had the same cigarette in their ears and hands. They could not help but be shocked. Did Prince Zhang really give these to us personally? The people from Tonghui Lane straightened their backs as if they were presenting a treasure. They looked at the sky at a 45-degree angle and let the cigarette in their ears leak out. The onlookers couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. They hurriedly asked, "Nero Zhou, no Master Zhou, tell us, what did Prince Zhang say? Why would he give you such expensive cigarettes?" "Hee, you begged me." Nero Zhou stroked the large black mole at the corner of his mouth and was extremely proud of himself. However, after waiting for a long time and seeing that no one was begging him, he could only rub his nose embarrassedly and say, "Prince Zhang is simply a god descending to the mortal world." Didn't an old Taoist say that Chang'an's Emperor Ziwei had descended to the mortal world? In my opinion, Prince Zhang must be that Emperor Ziwei. This ball was made by Prince Zhang when he saw how pitiful we were. We didn't have enough to eat or wear, so he made the bone-strengthening powder that only exists in the heavens. However, those damned rich bastards took it for themselves. In the end, Prince Zhang got angry and stopped making the powder. Instead, he made this thing called a basketball. This thing is amazing. Nero Zhou became more and more excited as he spoke. More and more onlookers gathered around. Even Niu Weili, who had a splitting headache early in the morning, appeared out of nowhere and surrounded them. "Kid, tell me, what did Brother Zhang come up with this time?" Nero Zhou was very excited. When had he ever been so awe-inspiring? This was all given to him by Prince Zhang. When he saw someone calling Prince Zhang brother, he immediately said disdainfully, "Who do you think you are? How can you call Prince Zhang a brother?" Before he could finish his sentence, Nero Zhou saw Niu Weili. The people around them unconsciously took a few steps back. Nero Zhou could not help but swallow his saliva with great difficulty. He knelt on the ground with a thud and said with a sobbing tone, "Lord Niu, I was talking nonsense. Please be magnanimous and don't lower yourself to my level." Chapter 887. How could Niu Weili be in the mood to argue with him? Yesterday, he didn't know what kind of wine Zhang Feng gave him. He didn't even know how he got back. He just heard from the servants that he was thrown from a carriage to the gate of the county government. He wanted to visit Zhang Feng early in the morning. He also wanted to see if he could get some lucrative jobs. For example, the security of the market under the hill. Now, the market under the hill was even more awesome than the 2 big markets in Chang'an. The tax revenue was simply enviable. But before he arrived at Tonghui Square, Nyo Weili saw a group of people gathered together. Zhou Bopi, who was standing on the stone lion head at the gate of Tonghui Square, couldn't help but come up curiously. Then he heard this good news. His eyes lit up. At this time, he didn't care about Zhou Bopi's bad record. He waved his hand and said, "If you tell me everything in detail, I'll pretend that it didn't happen. If you lie, I'll punish you for the crime of dishonoring an official of the imperial court." While speaking, Nyo Weili stared at Zhou Bopi and said, "At least 80 beatings and then throw him into the mine." Hearing this, Zhou Bopi panicked. Lying on the ground, his whole body trembled. "Master Nyo, you're so merciful. I was just talking on the spur of the moment. Prince Zhang himself is a god. How can ordinary people dare to claim kinship with him? So I'm just defending Prince Zhang's reputation. I don't mean anything against Master Nyo. Get up and talk." Nyo Weili was just scaring this guy. He didn't intend to punish him. Seeing this, Zhou Bopi hurriedly got up and said loudly, "Last night, you should all know about the basketball, right?" Nyo Weili frowned, looked at the private advisor beside him and asked, "What's a basketball?" The private advisor paused and quickly told Nyo Weili about the basketball in detail. Hearing this, Nyo Weili couldn't help but change his expression. Once again, he listened attentively. Nero Zhou seemed to have regained his excitement from before, but he didn't dare to climb up the stone lion. He raised the remaining half of his cigarette and said, "Prince Zhang just made a basketball at Niu Pai Huang. Moreover, I heard that it took the 4 great scholars, Divine Dr. Sun, and a few others several days of painstaking effort to boil this pot of material. That thing is incredible. With a light pat on the ground, he can jump up 10 feet high. And Prince Zhang also said that from now on, he will build a basketball court in every street and alley. Everyone, old and young, can play basketball and strengthen their bodies. He wants us to prolong our lives together. Not only that, Child Zhang even intends to award it to those who perform well out of his own pocket. Additionally, the winner of the annual basketball match in Tongshan Mountain could get a promise from Child Zhang within his ability. Chapter 888. When Li Shimin heard this, he thought for a moment and said, "Calculating the time, it seems that it's time for the mid-autumn hunt. However, we won't be able to see such a wonderful thing." When Li Yuan heard this, he said, "First, calculate the money from the last round clearly for me." Li Shimin was somewhat speechless, but he really didn't have a single copper coin on him. He looked at the palace maids around him. Only then did he pay off the debt. Li Yuan was like a miser, holding copper coins and said, "If you want to see, after this guy finishes the mid-autumn hunt, or before the mid-autumn hunt, we'll go to Shao Mountain together. In any case, Old Man is also the honorary vice dean of White Deer College. It's not too much to go and inspect this basketball." When Li Shimin heard this, he couldn't help but laugh loudly. Imperial Father is right. While speaking, Li Shimin asked faintly, "Little Gizi, I heard that Yuchi Yu, Duke of E, and the others went to the small tavern one after another yesterday." "Yes." Little Gizi bowed and hurriedly said, "Replying to your Majesty, retired Emperor, Yuchi Yu stayed in the tavern for an hour. After she went out, there was nothing strange. This servant feels that nothing happened. However, Duke of E and Duke of Lu stayed for about 3 hours. And then? Little Gizi carefully explained the matter of the Crown Prince and the others visiting Zhang Feng. At this time, Li Chengqian also hurried from Shao Mountain to the Imperial Garden. When Li Shimin saw that Li Chengqian's expression was strange, he waved his hand and dismissed everyone. Only then did he point to the stone bench at the side and said, "What matter do you have that you don't pay attention to your image?" Li Yuan also looked at Li Chengqian with a smile and asked, "Qian, do you have any good news to tell me? Imperial grandfather still understands your grandson." Li Chengqian hurriedly flattered him. Li Shimin heard this and snorted to express his dissatisfaction. However, Li Yuan did not give him the opportunity to ask. He asked, "Yesterday, I heard that you turned the entire palace upside down in search of briquette?" "Yes, it was Feng Zi who told me to look for it. Furthermore, He said that only this thing can maintain the temperature of the furnace to a higher degree and then smelt steel. Oh! Hearing this, a hint of shock flashed across the faces of Li Yuan and Li Shimin. The matter of the firearms, the impenetrable shield, and the invincible spear had always affected the two of them. And the source of all of this was the need to obtain steel. Now that the two of them actually heard good news from Li Chengqian's mouth, they couldn't help but be even happier. TSK, tell me in detail. This isn't something you want to talk about, right? Li Shimin waved his hand and laughed. Just as Imperial Father said, this isn't the case. The mine that Imperial Father has always been interested in has taken shape. Yes. Hearing this, Li Shimin was shocked. He quickly looked around and shouted coldly in the distance, "Clean up the Imperial Garden. Without my order, not a single mouse is allowed to enter." Then Li Shimin and the other two fell into a short silence. Mines had always been an important thing that troubled Li Shimin and the Tang dynasty. Now the iron blocks, coal mines, and gold and silver mines of the Tang dynasty were all in the hands of the Wang clan of Taiyuan. This was something that Li Shimin and Li Yuan had always been unable to let go of. At this time, they actually heard this matter again from Li Chengqian's mouth. They couldn't help but think of something in an instant. After a bird's cry came, Li Shimin asked, "Qian, why do you say that? Did you find a coal mine?" Li Chengqian smiled bitterly and said, "If only I had that ability." It was Feng Zi who guessed where there was a coal mine in Erpi Ridge of Lantian County. What? How did he know? Li Yuan and Li Shimin couldn't help but ask in unison. Coal was not important. It was very needed in winter and the daily needs of the palace. However, this thing had always been in the hands of those nobles. Under their wolf-like eyes, it was very difficult to find scattered playthings. However, not to mention coal mines, even if there were other minerals that needed a large amount now, as the emperor of a country, he actually didn't know much about them. This was the worry of Li Shimin and Li Yuan. The main reason was that they didn't have talents who specialized in mining like the aristocratic families. Now that Zhang Feng appeared, the two couldn't help but find a way to get rid of the nobles. Although it was easy to push Zhang Feng to the opposite side of those aristocratic families by doing so, Zhang Feng on the mountain now had settled the four great scholars, and Li Yuan took the initiative to become the honorary vice president. If they wanted to make a move on Zhang Feng, they had to think about it first. In that case, he would have to weigh the pros and cons first. Moreover, if it was as Zhang Feng had said, he would be able to create this gun that was even more terrifying than the invincible spear in a short period of time. Then what was Li Shimin afraid of? At that time, no matter what Guanlong 8 great families, as well as those 5 families and 7 families, they would all tremble under his power. Li Shimin's eyes couldn't help but become more intense. "Tell me, is this matter confirmed?" Li Chengqian shook his head and said, "It is because of the importance of this matter that I sent out countless loyal people last night, and then hurriedly returned to the palace to report." Good. Li Shimin nodded in appreciation. "It seems that I made the right choice to let you follow Feng Zi. This is the way a monarch should do."